I knew my sister hated me. I knew she resented my house, my career, and the money our grandfather left for my daughter. I knew every smile she gave me had teeth behind it. Every compliment came wrapped in poison. Every family dinner was just another stage where she could remind me I was supposed to be smaller than her. But I never thought Celeste would smile at a 7-year-old child and hand her a drink that could destroy her life. The cup was pink. That is the detail I still remember before anything else. Not the screaming, not the ambulance lights flashing red against my new kitchen windows, not my brother-in-law choking on my patio while my guests backed away in horror. The cup, bright pink plastic, the kind you buy in bulk for summer parties. It had a little paper umbrella tucked against the rim because Lily loved anything that looked like it belonged at a beach, even though we were standing in the backyard of my brand new house, surrounded by catered trays, string lights, and people who had come to congratulate me. My daughter was wearing a yellow dress that night. She had picked it herself because she said it made her look like sunshine with legs. Her curls were clipped back with two butterfly barrettes, and she had spent the first hour of the party showing my coworkers her drawings like she was hosting her own private gallery. She was happy. That was what made it unforgivable. Celeste found her near the patio table, right beside the lemonade dispenser and the bowl of sliced strawberries. My sister bent down like the perfect aunt from a family Christmas commercial, all soft voice and glossy hair and diamonds sparkling under the warm backyard lights. "Lily," she said sweetly, "I had Uncle Adrian make you something special." I was standing maybe 12 feet away, holding a tray of empty glasses, pretending not to hear Celeste make another comment to one of my neighbors about how brave I was to buy such a large house as a single mother. Brave. That was Celeste's favorite word for me when she wanted people to hear pathetic. Lily looked up at her, trusting and curious. "For me?" she asked. "For you, sweetheart." Celeste smiled wider. "A princess drink." She handed Lily the pink cup, and something inside me went cold. Not because of the color, not because of Celeste's voice, not even because Adrian had made it. It was the rim. There was a faint, chalky residue clinging to the inside edge, pale and powdery, not fully dissolved into the drink. Most people would not have noticed it. Most mothers at their own housewarming party, distracted by music and guests and the pressure to seem happy, might have missed it. But I am not most people. I am a forensic accountant. I spend my life noticing what people try to hide. A number that does not belong, a transfer that lands in the wrong account, a pattern that looks normal until you realize someone designed it to look normal. And that powder was not normal. My hand tightened around the tray. Celeste's eyes flicked toward me. Just once, that tiny glance told me everything. She was watching for my reaction, so I did not scream. I did not run across the patio. I did not slap the cup out of Lily's hand. I did not give Celeste the performance she was waiting for, because in that second, I understood something with a clarity that still makes my stomach turn. This was not impulse. This was a plan. And my daughter was standing in the middle of it. I set the tray down slowly and walked toward Lily with the kind of calm that only exists when panic has nowhere safe to go. "Baby," I said, keeping my voice light, "hold on. Your sandal strap is loose." Lily looked down immediately. "It is?" I kneeled in front of her, blocking Celeste's view with my body as much as I could. With one hand, I touched Lily's ankle. With the other, I gently took the cup from her fingers. "Let me fix it before you trip," I said. There was nothing wrong with her sandal. My hands were steady only because they had to be. I turned slightly, just enough to place the pink cup on the corner of the patio table behind a pitcher and a stack of napkins. Then I reached for a clean cup of fruit punch from the other side of the table and gave it to Lily. "Here," I said. "This one has extra orange slices." Lily beamed. "Thanks, Mommy." Celeste's smile twitched. It lasted less than a second, but I saw it. The disappointment. Then Adrian came back from the outdoor bar. My brother-in-law looked expensive even when he was doing nothing. White linen shirt, silver watch, charming smile. The kind of man people trusted because he knew how to stand like someone who had never been desperate a day in his life. "Everything okay over here?" he asked. Celeste's eyes moved to the pink cup. So did mine. Adrian reached for what he thought was his cocktail. But because I had shifted the cups when I moved Lily away, his hand closed around the wrong glass. The pink one. Celeste opened her mouth. Too late. Adrian took a large swallow. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The music kept playing. Someone laughed near the grill. Lily sipped her safe drink beside me, completely unaware that her life had just turned on the smallest movement of my hand. Then Adrian's face changed. His smile collapsed first. Then his throat worked like he was trying to swallow something sharp. The cup slipped from his hand and hit the patio stone, pink liquid splashing across his shoes. "Adrian?" Celeste whispered. He clawed at his collar. His lips began to darken. Someone screamed. Adrian stumbled backward, crashed into the charcuterie table, and took half of it down with him. Cheese, crackers, grapes, broken glass. Everything scattered across the patio as he hit the ground hard. Celeste screamed his name, but she did not move toward him right away. She looked at Lily, then she looked at me, and in that awful frozen second, I saw the truth on my sister's face. She was not horrified that Adrian was on the ground. She was horrified that Lily was not. I grabbed my daughter and pushed her gently but firmly toward my best friend, Brooke, who had already started running across the yard. "Take her inside," I said. "Now." Brooke did not ask questions. That is why I trusted her more than anyone with my child. She wrapped an arm around Lily and hurried her through the back door while guests shouted for someone to call 911. I moved toward Adrian, but only close enough to see his breathing, not close enough to touch the broken cup with my bare hands. His chest jerked violently. His eyes were wide and wet with terror. Celeste dropped beside him then, sobbing loudly, performing grief for the entire backyard. But her eyes kept finding mine. I knew that look. She was already calculating. By the time the ambulance arrived, Adrian Morgan was turning blue on my patio. But the scariest part was not watching my brother-in-law almost die. The scariest part was realizing my sister looked disappointed that it was not my daughter on the ground. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 34 years old, a single mother, and a senior forensic accountant. That means I make a living finding the truth people hide inside numbers. Fake vendors, phantom invoices, shell companies, offshore accounts, secret payments disguised as consulting fees. I have watched powerful men sit across from me in $1,000 suits and lie with perfect eye contact, convinced they were smarter than paper trails. They almost never are. Money always tells a story. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it screams, but it always leaves a trail. That was why, later, when my family tried to destroy me, I did not chase rumors. I did not beg them to tell the truth. I did not waste my breath trying to convince people who had already decided I was guilty. I followed the money, but before I understood the financial crime, before the lawyers, before the federal agents, before my sister's perfect life collapsed in a conference room full of witnesses, there was something much older. There was the family I was born into. And in that family, Celeste was the golden child. I was the responsible one. That might not sound cruel at first. People hear responsible and think it is a compliment. In my house, it was a sentence. Responsible meant I did not need help. Responsible meant my feelings could wait. Responsible meant if something went wrong, I should have known better. Celeste Whitaker Morgan was 2 years older than me, and from the time we were little girls, she was treated like sunlight had personally chosen her. My mother, Marjorie, adored her in a way that was almost religious. Celeste's tantrums were big feelings. My tears were drama. Celeste's mistakes were learning experiences. My mistakes were proof that I was difficult. When Celeste wanted something, my parents found a way to give it to her. When I wanted something, I was given a speech about character. My father, Douglas, was not loud like my mother. He did not have to be. His weapon was silence. He sat in the background of our lives and let Marjorie decide who deserved love and who needed correction. When Celeste lied, he looked away. When my mother criticized me until I went quiet, he looked away. When I stared at him across the dinner table, begging him with my eyes to say one fair thing, one brave thing, one fatherly thing, he looked away. That was how I learned not to expect rescue. Celeste went to private schools because she needed the right environment. I went to public school because I was adaptable. Celeste's college tuition was paid in full. Mine came with student loans and a part-time job. Celeste got a designer wardrobe for her internships. I got reminded that appearance was less important than hard work. When Celeste graduated, my parents threw her a party at the country club. There were white roses, champagne, and a speech from my mother about how proud she was to have raised such an extraordinary daughter. When I graduated with honors, we went to brunch. My mother spent most of that brunch talking about Celeste's engagement. I wish I could say I stopped caring. I did not. That is the embarrassing thing about being the scapegoat child. You can grow up, you can move out, you can build a career, you can pay your own bills, buy your own house, and raise your own child, and still have one small bruised part of you waiting for your mother to finally say, I see you. I spent years pretending I was above that. Then Lily was born, and pretending became harder. Lily Carter came into my life on a rainy Tuesday morning, tiny and furious, with a cry that sounded like she had arrived already offended by the world. Her father left before she was born, and my family treated his absence like a stain on me. My mother did not ask how I was feeling. She did not ask if I was scared. She said, "This is what happens when you insist on doing everything alone." I was 8 months pregnant when she said that. Celeste was sitting beside her, wearing a silk blouse and a diamond tennis bracelet, looking at me with that soft little smile she used whenever my pain made her feel superior. "Maybe motherhood will soften you," she said. I remember putting one hand over my stomach. Lily kicked beneath my palm, strong and stubborn, like she was already answering for both of us. In that moment, I made a promise. My daughter would never have to earn love by being convenient. She would never be punished for needing help. She would never stand in a room full of family and feel alone. For 7 years, I kept that promise. I worked hard. Harder than I probably should have. I took difficult cases and late nights. I built a reputation in a field where people underestimated me until they realized I had already found the missing account, the forged signature, and the payment they swore did not exist. I learned how to be calm under pressure. I learned how to smile at men who tried to intimidate me. I learned how to make pancakes shaped like stars after sleeping 4 hours because Lily had a school art show and I refused to let my exhaustion become her childhood memory. We were happy. Not perfect, but happy. Then my grandfather died. Grandfather Harold was my mother's father, and he was the only person in my family who saw things clearly. He was not warm in an obvious way. He did not hug often or give big speeches. But he noticed. He noticed when my parents paid Celeste's rent after college while telling me independence would build character. He noticed when Marjorie praised Celeste for hosting charity luncheons, but ignored the fact that I was raising a child alone while building a career. Most of all, he noticed Lily. He loved that little girl. He used to sit with her on the living room floor, even when his knees bothered him, and let her explain every drawing she made. If Lily drew a purple horse with wings, he would ask where it lived, whether it had a job, and if it paid taxes. Lily thought he was hilarious. I thought he was the only person in my bloodline who understood what love was supposed to look like. When his will was read, I expected nothing. That was not humility. That was conditioning. People like me do not expect to be chosen. The attorney sat behind a polished wooden desk and read through the distributions in a careful voice. Celeste received jewelry. My mother received antique furniture. My father received a watch. Then the attorney looked down at the page and said, my grandfather had left $3 million in trust for Lily Carter. $3 million for Lily's education, housing, medical needs, and future security. I was named trustee until she reached adulthood. The room went silent. Celeste laughed once, sharp and humorless. For Lily? She asked. The attorney nodded. Yes. My mother's face changed. It was quick, but I saw it. Not grief, not confusion, insult. And Evelyn controls it? Marjorie asked. I administer it, I said quietly. For Lily. Celeste turned toward me then, and I saw something ugly settle behind her eyes. Jealousy, not surprise, not disappointment. Jealousy. From that day on, Lily's trust became the invisible guest at every family gathering. Celeste made little comments first. You have to admit, Evie, that kind of money is a lot for someone in your position. My position. As if I had not spent my entire career managing complex financial investigations. As if I could trace stolen assets through 5 corporations but could not understand a trust account for my own daughter. Then my mother started using softer language. Lily needs stability. Lily needs family protection. Lily should grow up with broader support. Every phrase sounded reasonable if you did not know my mother, but I knew her. In Marjorie's mouth, support meant control. Protection meant access. Family meant Celeste. Celeste's life looked perfect from the outside. She was married to Adrian Morgan, CFO of a private investment firm called Morgan Bridge Capital. They lived in a huge house with white columns and a circular driveway. She wore designer clothes, hosted charity events, and posted vacation photos with captions about gratitude and blessings. But every time Lily's trust came up, Celeste's smile got tighter. She would bend down near Lily and ask strange questions in a sweet voice. Does Mommy ever talk about Grandpa Harold's money? Do you know Aunt Celeste has a big house too? Wouldn't it be fun to stay with me and Uncle Adrian sometime? I shut it down every time. Still, I made the mistake of wanting peace. When I bought my house, I told myself it was a new chapter. It cost $1.2 million. But it was not bought with Lily's trust. Not 1 cent. It came from years of work, careful saving, smart investments, and saying no to every luxury Celeste thought made a life impressive. The house had a fenced backyard, a bright kitchen, and a sunny little room Lily immediately declared her art studio. To me, it was more than property. It was safety. It was proof. Proof that I had built something without my parents' money. Proof that I could give my daughter a beautiful life without begging anyone to approve of me. Proof that I was not the broken, difficult, reckless woman my family wanted me to be. So I invited them to the housewarming. Even now, after everything they did, I can admit the truth. A small part of me still wanted my mother to walk through the door, look around, and say, "Evelyn, I am proud of you." I wanted my father to hug me without hesitation. I wanted Celeste to see my home and understand that my success was not an attack on hers. I wanted one night where nobody made me feel like I had stolen something by surviving. Instead, I opened my door to the people who had been waiting for the perfect chance to take everything from me. I thought inviting them into my new home would prove I had finally made it. Instead, it gave them the perfect place to set their trap. The hospital smelled like antiseptic, burned coffee, and fear. I arrived 10 minutes after the ambulance because I refused to leave Lily at the house with anyone except Brooke. I needed to see my daughter with my own eyes first. I needed to kneel in front of her, touch her face, hear her voice, and make sure the nightmare on my patio had not reached the one person it was meant to destroy. Lily was sitting on the living room couch with a blanket around her shoulders, watching cartoons with the sound too low. She looked up when I came in. "Mommy," her voice was small. "Is Uncle Adrian okay?" I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to say, "I don't know, baby, because your aunt handed you something dangerous, and your uncle drank it instead." But she was 7. So I swallowed the terror pressing against my ribs and said, "The doctors are helping him." Was it my fault? The question nearly broke me. I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. "No," I said firmly. "No, sweetheart. Nothing that happened tonight was your fault." She leaned against me, and I held her longer than I needed to, because I knew the second I let go, I would have to become someone else again. Calm, useful, careful. Brooke stood near the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "I'll keep her here," she said. "Do not open the door for my family." "I won't." "Do not answer questions from anyone except police or paramedics." "I know. And if my mother comes back—" Brooke stepped closer. "Evelyn, I've got her." I believed her. That was the only reason I left. By the time I reached the emergency room, Celeste had already turned the waiting area into a stage. She sat in a chair near the wall with my mother wrapped around her like a shield. Marjorie was stroking Celeste's hair, whispering, "My poor baby," over and over, as if Celeste were the one fighting for air behind a set of double doors. My father stood nearby with his hands in his pockets, pale and silent. Douglas always looked uncomfortable when reality demanded a spine. Celeste saw me first. Her face changed so quickly that anyone else might have missed it. The trembling victim disappeared for half a second, replaced by something colder. Then she gasped, "You." Every head in the waiting room turned. I stopped near the entrance, my purse still over my shoulder, the sealed plastic bag with the pink cup inside tucked carefully in a second bag Brooke had given me. My mother stood. "Evelyn," she said, and there was no relief in her voice. No question about Lily, no horror over what had almost happened, just accusation. I looked at my sister. "How is Adrian?" Celeste let out a broken laugh. "How is Adrian? That's what you're asking me?" "It is a reasonable question. You tried to kill my husband." The words hit the room like a drop tray. A woman near the vending machine turned fully around. A nurse at the desk looked up. My father closed his eyes, not in disbelief, but exhaustion, as if the inconvenience of conflict mattered more than the lie. I kept my voice quiet. No, Celeste, I did not. You switched the drink. I moved a drink away from my daughter because you knew what was in it. She snapped. There it was. Too fast, too rehearsed. My mother stepped in front of Celeste like I might physically attack her. Enough, Marjorie said. Your sister is traumatized. My daughter was handed that drink. Celeste's sobbing sharpened. I was trying to be nice to Lily. I asked Adrian to make her a mocktail because she looked left out. You were the one acting strange. You were watching everyone all night. Because you were doing something worth watching, I thought. But I did not say it. In a hospital, words become statements. Statements become evidence. And my family had already started building theirs. A doctor came out before Celeste could continue. He was a tired-looking man with kind eyes and a clipboard pressed to his chest. Family for Adrian Morgan? Celeste jumped up. I'm his wife. The doctor nodded. Mr. Morgan is stable for now, but he experienced a severe anaphylactic reaction. His airway was compromised when he arrived. We administered epinephrine and additional support. Celeste covered her mouth dramatically. My mother hugged her from the side. The doctor continued, there are also symptoms that don't fully align with a straightforward allergic reaction. His blood pressure, level of responsiveness, and respiratory depression suggests there may have been another substance involved. My father finally spoke. What kind of substance? We don't know yet, the doctor said. We've ordered a full toxicology panel. Celeste's crying stopped, only for a second, but it stopped. I saw it. So did the doctor, though his face gave nothing away. Does Mr. Morgan take any sedatives, prescription sleep aids, anti-anxiety medication, or pain medication? He asked. No, Celeste said too quickly. Then she corrected herself. I mean, not that I know of. The doctor made a note. Marjorie looked at me. What did you have in your house? She demanded. I stared at her. Excuse me? You heard the doctor. Another substance. You work with criminals. You deal with God knows what kind of people. What did you bring into your home? It was such a ridiculous leap that for half a second, I had no response. Then I realized ridiculous did not matter. She was not trying to make sense. She was trying to create a narrative. Celeste picked it up immediately. She has dangerous things in that house, Celeste said through tears. Files, evidence, strange people calling her. She's always been secretive. I work on financial cases, I said. Not drug cases. You think that matters? Celeste cried. You hated Adrian. You hated us. I barely think about Adrian. That made her eyes flash. Good. Truth often irritates people more than insults. The doctor looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. If there's a concern about intentional contamination, hospital security and police will need to be involved. They already should be, Celeste said. Yes, I replied. They should. My mother shot me a warning look. That old look. The one that said, stop embarrassing this family. But something had shifted in me on that patio. For 34 years, I had been trained to lower my voice so Celeste could keep her halo. Not anymore. The doctor left to arrange the next steps, and the waiting room seemed to shrink around us. Marjorie moved closer. Her voice dropped. You need to think very carefully about what you do next. I almost laughed. My daughter was almost drugged. Do not be dramatic. I stared at her. For a moment, I did not see my mother. I saw every dinner table where she had called my pain attitude, every birthday where Celeste's preferences mattered more than mine, every achievement she had minimized because celebrating me felt like betrayal to her favorite child. Dramatic? I repeated. Marjorie's jaw tightened. Lily is fine. That sentence made something hot and ancient rise in me. Lily is fine, as if danger only counted when it succeeded, as if attempted harm was a misunderstanding, as if my daughter's survival were an inconvenience to the story they wanted to tell. Celeste stood, wiping her eyes carefully so her mascara would not smear too much. "Is she fine?" she asked. "Because I'm not sure any child is fine living with a mother who behaves like this." I turned slowly toward her. "What did you just say?" My mother answered instead. She said what we have all been afraid to say. Marjorie lifted her chin. "You are unstable, Evelyn." There it was, the word they had been saving. Unstable. Not grieving, not protective, not rightfully furious. Unstable. My father looked at the floor. "Douglas," I said. He did not look up. "Say something." He rubbed one hand over his mouth. "This is a complicated situation." I felt a sad, cold smile form on my face. "No, it really isn't." Marjorie leaned in closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You should be careful. A single mother under suspicion does not look good in court." The air left my lungs, not because I was shocked she could threaten me, because I finally understood the shape of the trap. "What court?" I asked. Her eyes held mine. "Lily needs a real family." The hallway noise faded. People moved around us. Nurses spoke into phones. A child coughed somewhere behind me. A vending machine hummed against the wall, but all I heard was my mother's voice. "Celeste and Adrian can give her stability," Marjorie continued, "and someone responsible needs to manage that trust before you ruin it." The trust. There it was. The thing under the thing. The reason Celeste had watched Lily with that hungry tightness in her smile. The reason my mother kept saying family protection. The reason Adrian had been so willing to control the drinks at my party. It was never just cruelty. It was strategy. My daughter drugged at my house, police called, hospital report, CPS concerns, family members ready to testify that I was unstable. Then pressure for emergency guardianship. And once Celeste had Lily, she would have proximity to the trust. Maybe not direct control at first. People like them knew better than to grab openly. They would start with safety, expenses, legal fees, housing needs, temporary arrangements. They would bleed it slowly, professionally. I had seen people steal from estates, charities, companies, elderly parents. But this was my child. My mother must have seen the realization on my face because she softened her voice. That was always when she was most dangerous. "Evelyn," she said, "this does not have to get ugly." "It already is." "Then stop making it worse." Celeste stepped beside her, suddenly brave again. "You should let Lily stay with us while everything is investigated." I looked at my sister. Her husband was in an emergency room because he had swallowed the drink she handed my daughter, and she was already reaching for custody. "You are never getting near my child again," I said. Celeste's face twisted. My mother inhaled sharply. "That sounds like a threat." "No," I said. "It is a boundary." Marjorie's eyes hardened. "We'll see what the authorities think." As if summoned by the word, 2 police officers entered the waiting area with a hospital security guard. Celeste immediately changed posture. Her shoulders curled inward. Her lips trembled. She became fragile again, delicate and devastated, the golden child wrapped in invisible light. Officer Daniels, according to his badge, approached first. "We need to speak with everyone who was present at the incident," he said. Celeste pointed at me. "She did it," she said. No hesitation, no shame. My mother stepped forward beside her. "I saw enough to know Evelyn was acting erratically," Marjorie said. I looked at my father. He swallowed. Then Douglas Whitaker, the man who had spent his entire life avoiding conflict, finally found his voice. Not to protect me, to bury me. I've been concerned about Evelyn's judgment for a long time, he told the officer. Something inside me went very still. It is a strange thing, watching your family choose a lie in real time, not suspecting it, not fearing it, watching it happen. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to shake my mother and ask what kind of grandmother heard that her granddaughter had almost been drugged and thought, how can this help Celeste? But I did not scream because Lily needed me free. Lily needed me credible. Lily needed me smarter than my pain. So I looked Officer Daniels directly in the eye and said, I will cooperate fully, but before anyone takes their version as fact, you need to review my security footage. You also need to collect the cup I preserved from the patio. Celeste's face went pale. Officer Daniels looked at the bag in my hand. You have the cup? Yes, I said. And I can tell you exactly who handed it to my daughter. My mother's mouth tightened. For the first time that night, she looked afraid. Not for Lily, not even for Adrian, for Celeste. And that told me everything I needed to know. When the police arrived, my mother did not hesitate. She looked an officer in the eye and helped my sister frame me. Police stations and hospitals have one thing in common. They both make everyone look guilty under fluorescent lights. Officer Daniels asked me to step into a smaller consultation room off the emergency department hallway. A second officer, Officer Patel, came with him. She had kind eyes, but not soft ones. I recognized the look. Professional caution. The kind people wear when they have heard every version of a story and know at least one person is lying. I sat down across from them with my hands folded in my lap. Not because I was calm, because I knew what shaking hands looked like to people who already had 3 family members calling me unstable. Officer Daniels placed a small recorder on the table. We're going to ask you some questions about what happened at your residence tonight, he said. I understand. Given the seriousness of the allegation, you should know you're not under arrest at this moment, but we do need to determine whether a crime occurred. At this moment, I repeated quietly. He did not apologize. Officer Patel leaned forward. Miss Carter, your sister states that you intentionally switched a drink containing berry puree into Mr. Morgan's hand, knowing he had a severe allergy. I stared at her. That was new. Celeste had shifted the story already. At the hospital, she said I poisoned Adrian. Now she was claiming I weaponized his allergy. Smart, cruel, but smart. A poisoning accusation required proof that I added something. An allergy accusation only required proof that I knew something and acted with intent. It would muddy the water. It would make my decision to move the cup look suspicious instead of protective. She said I switched the drink into his hand? I asked. Officer Daniels checked his notes. She said you moved cups around on the patio table shortly before Mr. Morgan drank from one. I moved a cup away from my daughter. Why? Because I saw my sister put something in it. Officer Patel watched my face carefully. What did you see? A small folded paper from her clutch. White powder. She poured it into a pink plastic cup, stirred it poorly, then handed it to my 7-year-old daughter. Officer Daniels wrote something down. Your sister says it was a crushed medication for Adrian. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the lie was already evolving in front of me like a virus. She put Adrian's medication into a child's party drink? That is what she claims may have happened accidentally. Then why did she hand it to Lily? Officer Daniels did not answer. That told me enough. They did not believe Celeste completely. But disbelief was not the same as proof. And proof was the only language that mattered now. I took a breath. I preserved the cup. I avoided touching the rim. I placed it in a clean food storage bag. It is with hospital security now because Officer Patel took possession of it 5 minutes ago. Officer Patel nodded. That's correct. I also have exterior cameras covering the patio and backyard. Both officers looked up. There is security footage? Officer Daniels asked. Yes. Celeste had not known that. That was the first real advantage I had. When I bought the house, I installed cameras for normal reasons. Packages, the driveway, the backyard, because Lily liked to play outside while I cooked dinner. I never imagined they would become the thing standing between me and a criminal accusation. Officer Patel straightened. Can we access that footage tonight? Yes, I said. Brooke Ellis is at my home with my daughter. I can call her and authorize her to give you access to the system. Or I can provide the login. Officer Daniels studied me for a moment. Maybe he expected hesitation. There was none. People with something to hide do not usually beg police to watch the video. Within 20 minutes, an officer had gone to my house. Brooke called me twice, the first time to tell me Lily was asleep on the couch under her unicorn blanket, the second time to say the officer was there and she had shown him the camera system. I stayed in the consultation room while the officers went in and out. No one arrested me. No one cleared me either. That middle space was its own kind of torture. Through the half-open door, I could hear my mother's voice rising in the waiting room. She has always been difficult. Then Celeste's. She was staring at us all night. Then my father's low murmur. We just want Lily safe. Every sentence was another brick in the wall they were trying to build around me. I pressed my nails into my palm and reminded myself not to react. Anger feels righteous when you are innocent. But to strangers, anger can look like guilt. After nearly an hour, Officer Daniels returned with Officer Patel. Their faces had changed, not dramatically. Police officers do not burst into rooms saying, "Good news, your family is lying," but something in their posture had shifted. Officer Patel sat across from me. We reviewed preliminary footage from your backyard camera, she said. I kept my eyes on her. And? The video appears to show your sister handling something near the drink table before giving a cup to your daughter. My lungs loosened for the first time in hours. Does it show the powder? Not clearly enough to identify the substance, Officer Daniels said. But it does show her removing something from her clutch, holding it over the cup, stirring, and then handing the cup to Lily. I closed my eyes for half a second. Not relief, grief, because part of me had still been waiting for the universe to offer a less monstrous explanation. There was none. What about me? I asked. It shows you taking the cup from your daughter, Officer Patel said. It also shows you giving your daughter a different cup and having Ms. Ellis take her inside. And Adrian? Officer Daniels flipped a page. Mr. Morgan appears to pick up the first cup himself. There it was. Not complete victory, but oxygen. Then, I didn't give it to him, I said. We know the footage does not support the exact statement your sister gave, Officer Daniels replied carefully. The exact statement. That was how professionals said lie before lawyers got involved. What happens now? We collect the footage formally. The cup will go to the lab. Toxicology is pending. Detectives will review everything with the district attorney. And Celeste? The officers exchanged a look. Officer Patel answered. At this stage, we are not making an arrest in the emergency department unless additional facts support immediate action. But she will be questioned further. I wanted to object. I wanted to demand handcuffs. I wanted someone to treat the attempted drugging of my child with the urgency it deserved. But I knew enough about investigations to understand the nightmare of not yet. Not yet did not mean never. It meant the system needed clean evidence. It meant toxicology, lab results, statements, chain of custody, intent. It meant my daughter's safety would have to survive procedure. Officer Daniels closed his notebook. For now, we advise you to avoid contact with your sister, brother-in-law, and parents. I gave a short, humorless laugh. That will not be difficult. He looked at me like he wanted to say something human, then decided against it. Miss Carter, one more thing. Yes? Mr. Morgan is awake. My stomach tightened, and he's asking to make a statement. Of course he was. Adrian Morgan had almost died, but apparently not enough to stop managing liability. They did not let me hear his statement directly. I only learned the substance of it afterward, through Officer Patel's careful summary and Nathan Rowe's later explanation when I called him from the parking lot at 3 a.m. Adrian claimed the crush substance was his medication. He said he had brought it with him because he had been experiencing stress-related insomnia. According to him, Celeste must have misunderstood and placed it in the wrong cup while trying to help him. Help him by drugging a pink mocktail meant for a child. But he was not done. Adrian also claimed that I knew about his berry allergy. He said I had aggressively moved drinks around after seeing Celeste near Lily. He said I positioned the berry-based drink where he would pick it up. He said I wanted to hurt him because I resented his and Celeste's stable family image. Those words were so polished I knew a lawyer had not written them. Adrian had. That was worse. A lawyer would have made the lie cleaner. Adrian made it personal. When Officer Patel told me, I sat very still. Did he explain why his medication was in a child's drink? I asked. He says he was confused after the reaction and needs to clarify details when he is medically stable. Of course, clarify. Another word people use when truth becomes inconvenient. Did he say what medication? Not yet, because he doesn't know what toxicology will show. Officer Patel did not respond. She did not have to. Adrian was buying time. Celeste had failed to keep the drink in Lily's hand. Adrian had accidentally swallowed whatever they meant for my daughter. The footage made Celeste look guilty. So Adrian created a counterweight. If Celeste looked like she contaminated the drink, then I had to look like I redirected it maliciously. If they could not make me the poisoner, they could make me reckless. If they could not erase the footage, they could argue intent. That was the thing about people like Adrian. They did not need a lie to be perfect. They only needed it to create enough fog for the truth to move slowly. By the time I was finally allowed to leave, the hospital waiting room was almost empty. Celeste sat with Marjorie in the corner, her face pale and bare now that her makeup had worn down. Douglas stood near the window, staring into the dark parking lot, like if he looked hard enough, he could find a version of himself that had not failed both daughters. Celeste saw me walking out. For once, she did not cry. She just stared. Hatred looks different when it is scared. Marjorie stood. Evelyn, I kept walking. Evelyn, this has gone too far. I stopped near the automatic doors and turned around. My mother's face was tight with fury, disguised as concern. You need to think about Lily, she said. I am. Are you? Because dragging this family through a police investigation will traumatize her. I looked at Celeste, then back at my mother. No, I said. Drugging her would have traumatized her. Marjorie flinched, but only because a nurse was close enough to hear. Lower your voice, she hissed. That was my mother. Not, how could this happen? Not, is Lily afraid? Not, I am sorry. Lower your voice. I turned to leave. My father spoke then. "Evelyn, please, don't make this worse." I paused with my hand near the door. For the first time that night, I looked directly at him and felt nothing. No hope, no ache, no little girl waiting for rescue. "You already did," I said. Then I walked out. The air outside was cold enough to sting. I sat in my car and locked the doors before calling Nathan Rowe. Nathan was not just any attorney. He was disciplined, sharp, and allergic to drama. I had worked with him on fraud litigation before, and he had the rare legal mind that understood both evidence and human stupidity. He answered on the fourth ring, voice rough with sleep. "Evelyn, I need a lawyer." That woke him up. I told him everything, not emotionally, not at first. I gave him facts, timeline, names, footage, cup, hospital, statements, Adrian's counterclaim, my mother's custody threat. Nathan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he said, "Do not speak to any of them again without counsel." I wasn't planning to. I mean it. No calls, no texts, no emotional responses. Preserve everything. Screenshot messages, save voicemails. Make a written timeline tonight while details are fresh. Back up your security footage in 3 separate places. I know. You know professionally, I said. I need you to know personally. That almost broke me. Because personally, I wanted to go home, crawl into bed beside Lily, and pretend the world could not reach us under the blankets. But pretending was not protection. Documentation was. "Evelyn," Nathan said, softer now, "is Lily safe?" I looked through the windshield at the hospital entrance, where my mother stood inside the glass doors watching me. "Yes," I said, "for now." "Then go home. Be with your daughter. We start protecting both of you today." I drove home through empty streets, my hands locked around the steering wheel. When I got there, Brooke opened the door before I could knock. Lily was asleep on the couch, one hand tucked under her cheek, her butterfly barrettes still in her hair. She looked impossibly small. I knelt beside her and touched her forehead. Still warm, still safe, still mine. For the first time all night, my body shook, not a little, violently. Brooke sat beside me on the floor and put one arm around my shoulders. "I almost missed it," I whispered. "But you didn't." "They tried to take her from me." Brooke's voice turned hard. "Then they picked the wrong mother." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But evidence does not instantly fix everything. Systems move slowly, lies move fast, and my family had money, status, and a lifetime of practice making me look like the problem. That night, I checked Lily's room 6 times. I checked the windows, the locks, the cameras, the hallway outside her door. Then I sat at my kitchen table until sunrise, writing down every detail before grief could blur it. The pink cup, the powder, Celeste's glance, Adrian's hand, my mother's threat, my father's lie. By morning, I had a timeline, 3 backups of the footage, 27 screenshots, and one terrible certainty. This was not over. 3 days later, a man in a gray suit knocked on my door. That was when I learned they were not just trying to blame me. They were trying to bankrupt me. The man in the gray suit stood on my front porch at 8:17 in the morning. I remember the time because I had just packed Lily's lunch, peanut butter sandwich cut into triangles, strawberries in a small container, a note tucked under her napkin that said, "You are brave, you are loved, you are safe." I wrote that note for her, but I think I needed it more. When the doorbell rang, Lily looked up from the kitchen island where she was coloring a fox purple. "Is that Brooke?" she asked. "No, baby. Stay here." I checked the camera first. A man I did not recognize stood outside holding a leather folder. Gray suit, blue tie, professional posture. Not a neighbor, not police, not family. That made him worse. I opened the door with the chain lock still in place. "Yes? Evelyn Carter? Who's asking?" He reached into his folder and held up an envelope. "My name is Patrick Hensley. I'm a process server. You've been served." For a second, I just stared at the envelope. Then he slid it through the gap as if he were delivering a menu instead of a threat. "Have a good day," he said. He walked back to his car without another word. I closed the door. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. Lily's voice floated in from the kitchen. "Mommy?" I forced my face into something normal before turning around. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Finish your fox. We leave for school in 10 minutes. Everything was not fine. The lawsuit was 37 pages long. Adrian Morgan was suing me for $1 million. Medical trauma, lost wages, emotional distress, intentional infliction of harm, reckless endangerment, civil assault. The language was polished, aggressive, and disgusting. According to the complaint, I had knowingly manipulated a drink station at my own housewarming party to expose Adrian to a known allergen. It claimed I had a history of resentment toward Celeste and Adrian because of their stable marital status and financial success. It described me as erratic, jealous, and emotionally volatile. It did not mention that Celeste had handed the drink to my daughter. It did not mention the white powder. It did not mention the security footage except to twist it into something ugly. The complaint said the video showed me interfering with beverages shortly before the incident. Interfering. That was what they called saving my child. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting in Nathan Rowe's office with the lawsuit on the table between us. Nathan read fast. He always did. His eyes moved down the page without his expression changing, but the muscles in his jaw tightened by page 6. That was how I knew it was bad. When he finished, he took off his glasses and set them down carefully. "This is not about winning damages," he said. "I know. It's pressure. I know that too. They want to bury you in legal costs, scare you into settlement, and create a civil record they can use alongside the criminal uncertainty." I nodded, though my throat felt too tight to speak. Nathan tapped one section of the complaint. "This paragraph here, the one about Lily being present in an unsafe environment, that is not accidental. No. They are building a family court argument." Hearing him say it out loud made my stomach turn. I had known it since the hospital hallway. But there is a difference between knowing a storm is coming and watching the sky split open. Nathan leaned back. "Adrian's attorneys also filed for a temporary asset preservation order." "What does that mean for me?" "It means they are trying to stop you from moving money, selling property, refinancing your house, or transferring assets while the civil claim is pending." "I'm not hiding assets." "I know. This is not because they think you are. It is because they want to restrict your options." My hands went cold. "My house? They cannot just take your house. But they can cloud the title with a lien-like claim tied to the lawsuit. It makes it difficult to refinance or sell quickly. Some accounts may be temporarily restricted pending a hearing." I looked at him. "So they are trying to trap me?" "Yes." Nathan did not soften it. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. People think comfort is always gentle. Sometimes comfort is someone refusing to lie to you. "They want you afraid," he said. "Afraid of losing the house, afraid of legal bills, afraid of family court, afraid enough to sign something." What something? We will find out soon. I did not have to wait long. That afternoon, my mother and father showed up at my house. They did not call first. Of course they did not. People who believe they own access to you never ask permission. I saw them on the camera and almost did not answer. Nathan had told me not to speak to them without counsel, but Lily was still at school, and a furious part of me wanted to look my parents in the eyes after what they had done. So I opened the door. I did not invite them in. Marjorie stood on this porch in a cream coat, pearls at her throat, looking like a woman arriving for brunch instead of one who had helped frame her daughter for attempted murder. Douglas stood beside her, hands in his pockets, shoulders rounded like guilt was heavy, but not heavy enough to change him. "We need to talk," Marjorie said. "No, we don't." She blinked. She was not used to my refusal arriving before her command. "Evelyn, stop being childish." I almost smiled. There it was. My daughter had almost been drugged. My sister had lied to police. My brother-in-law was suing me. And still, somehow, I was childish. "You have 30 seconds, I said. My father glanced toward the street, embarrassed. "Can we do this inside?" "No." Marjorie's mouth tightened. "Fine. Adrian is willing to resolve this quietly." "Adrian is suing me for $1 million. And you should settle before this destroys you." I stared at her. "Before this destroys me? You have a child to think about." "I am aware." "Are you?" she snapped. "Because from where I stand, you are making emotional decisions that could cost Lily everything." There it was again. Lily as a weapon, not Lily as a child, not Lily as a person, Lily as leverage. Douglas finally spoke. "Your mother is saying the situation could become very difficult in court." "What court, Dad?" He looked away. Marjorie did not. "If Child Protective Services becomes involved, if police continue investigating, if Adrian's legal team proves you behaved recklessly, then questions will be asked. Let them ask. You are a single mother under criminal suspicion. I am not under criminal suspicion because Celeste lied badly and my cameras worked." My mother's face sharpened. "Do not speak about your sister that way." I let out a quiet laugh. That laugh surprised even me. "Celeste handed my daughter a drugged drink, and your concern is my tone?" She made a mistake. A mistake is putting salt instead of sugar in coffee, not contaminating a child's drink. "You don't know what happened." "I saw what happened." "You saw what you wanted to see," Marjorie said coldly. There was the mother I knew, the one who could rewrite reality mid-sentence and expect everyone else to live inside it. Douglas shifted uncomfortably. "Evelyn, maybe it would be best if Lily stayed somewhere neutral for a while." My body went still. "Neutral?" "With family," he said weakly. "With Celeste?" Neither of them answered. That was answer enough. I stepped closer to the threshold. "Listen to me carefully. Lily will never stay with Celeste. Not for a day. Not for an hour. Not for 5 minutes while I use the bathroom." Marjorie's eyes flashed. "You may not have a choice." I smiled then, not because anything was funny, because she had finally said the quiet part plainly enough to use later. "Thank you," I said. She frowned. "For what?" "For putting that threat into words." Douglas looked alarmed. "Now, Evelyn." I closed the door, then I locked it. My hands shook only after I heard their car leave. That night, Celeste posted the video. I did not see it first. Brooke did. She called me at 10:42 p.m., and the moment I heard her breathing, I knew. "What happened?" "Don't react," she said. That is never a good opening. Celeste posted something. I opened the link with a heaviness in my chest that had become too familiar. Celeste sat in soft lighting, wearing a pale sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked fragile, beautiful, wounded in a way people online love because it asks nothing from them except outrage. She never said my name. She was too careful for that. But Everin knew. I never thought I would have to speak publicly about something so painful, she began, voice trembling. But my husband is recovering from a terrifying medical emergency caused by someone we trusted, someone who has struggled for years with bitterness, jealousy, and instability. I watched my sister perform victimhood for an audience that did not know my daughter had been the target. She talked about toxic family members. She talked about protecting children from unsafe environments. She asked for prayers for Adrian. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "And please pray for my troubled sister. I hope one day she accepts help before more people get hurt." My troubled sister. I sat at my kitchen table and watched the views climb. At first, it was dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. By morning, my phone was full of messages, some from relatives I had not spoken to in years. "How could you do this? Celeste has always defended you. You need help. Think of Lily." Some were worse. "You're jealous because no man wanted you. Your grandfather made a mistake trusting you. Maybe Lily would be safer with your sister." That one made me put the phone down. At school drop-off, two mothers who usually waved at me turned away. One pulled her child closer when Lily and I passed. Lily noticed. "Mommy, why is everyone being weird?" I gripped her backpack strap and crouched in front of her. Sometimes grown-ups believe things before they know the truth. Like rumors? Yes. She thought about that. That's not very smart. "No," I said softly. "It isn't." She hugged me before walking into school. I waited until she was inside before I let my face change. Work was no better. No one accused me directly. Professionals rarely do. Instead, I got careful emails, delayed responses. A partner at one of the law firms I consulted for asked if I needed time to handle personal matters. Another client postponed a meeting indefinitely. That was how reputation damage worked. Not always explosions. Sometimes doors simply stopped opening. By the end of the week, I was surrounded by noise. The lawsuit, the asset restrictions, the social media whispers, the family threats, the school gossip, the criminal investigation moving too slowly, the civil case moving too fast. And through all of it, I still had to pack lunches, sign homework folders, answer Lily's questions, and pretend monsters did not wear designer coats and call themselves aunt, grandmother, grandfather. On the fifth night, after Lily fell asleep, I sat on the bathroom floor and finally broke. Not elegantly, not like women in movies who cry one perfect tear and stare out a window. I shook so hard my teeth clicked. I pressed a towel against my mouth so Lily would not hear me. I was scared. Not annoyed, not stressed, not inconvenienced, scared. Scared they would take my daughter. Scared I would run out of money before the truth caught up. Scared people would keep believing Celeste because she cried prettier than I did. Scared that my whole life could be burned down by the same family I had once begged to love me. For 10 minutes, I let myself fall apart. Then I washed my face. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Red eyes, pale mouth, hair pulled into a messy knot. A mother with no backup plan except herself. Then I remembered something. Fear is information. In my work, fear usually appears right before the truth. People panic when the trail gets close. They threaten when documents exist. They sue when exposure becomes more dangerous than silence. My family was not acting powerful because they were safe. They were acting powerful because they were desperate. I walked out of the bathroom, opened my laptop, and made a new folder. I named it Morgan Whitaker. Then I created subfolders: civil lawsuit, custody threats, social media defamation, security footage, messages, financial leads, because they were counting on me to panic. They were counting on me to defend myself emotionally, to exhaust myself, responding to every insult, every post, every threat. But they forgot what I did for a living. I did not chase rumors. I followed money. By midnight, my kitchen table no longer looked like a place where a mother packed lunches. It looked like a war room. My laptop was open in front of me. A legal pad sat to my right, already covered in names, dates, property records, possible aliases, and questions I did not yet have answers to. My phone was plugged in beside a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours earlier. Lily was asleep upstairs. Brooke had finally gone home after making me promise to text her every hour until morning. And I sat alone in my beautiful new house, surrounded by silence, doing the one thing my family should have feared from the beginning. I started looking, not emotionally, not recklessly, professionally. That distinction mattered. Anger wanted me to open Celeste's social media and read every comment until I found people to hate. Fear wanted me to refresh court portals, check my bank accounts, and imagine every possible way they could take Lily from me. But my training knew better. Fraud has patterns, desperation has fingerprints, and people who are trying to steal $3 million from a child do not usually start with the child. They start with a problem, a debt, a secret, a deadline. So I asked the first question I would have asked in any corporate investigation. Why now? Celeste had always been jealous of me. My mother had always wanted control. Adrian had always been smug. None of that was new. But drugging Lily, framing me, filing a lawsuit, pushing guardianship, that was escalation. Escalation meant pressure. Pressure meant something was collapsing behind the polished front door of Celeste and Adrian's perfect life. So I began with public records. The boring things, the useful things, county property databases, civil court filings, UCC liens, business registrations, tax records, corporate disclosures, vendor lists from old lawsuits, bankruptcy indexes, real estate transfers, campaign donation databases, anything legally accessible. People think investigations are dramatic. Most of the time, they are not. Most of the time, they are sitting in the dark with tired eyes, opening one document after another, waiting for a detail that does not belong. At 1:13 a.m., I found the first crack. Morgan Bridge Capital, Adrian's firm, had been named in 2 vendor disputes over unpaid invoices. Not huge amounts, not enough to make headlines, but enough to interest me. One vendor claimed Morgan Bridge delayed payment for technology consulting services for more than 9 months. Another filed a complaint over a terminated contract involving investment compliance documentation. Both cases had been quietly settled. That alone was not proof of fraud, but it was proof of stress. Successful private investment firms do not usually stiff mid-level vendors unless cash flow is tighter than they want people to know. I opened another database, then another. By 2:04 a.m., I found 3 subsidiaries connected to Morgan Bridge Capital: Morgan Bridge Strategic Holdings, MBC Advisory Partners, Northline Asset Services. All boring names. Boring names are often chosen on purpose. They sound like nothing because they are designed to disappear inside a spreadsheet. 2 of the subsidiaries had nearly identical mailing addresses. One listed a registered agent office downtown. One had no active website. One had filed annual reports late 2 years in a row. Again, not proof. But a pattern was forming. I wrote the names down. Then I moved to property records. Celeste and Adrian's house had always been part of their mythology. White columns, circular driveway, marble foyer, holiday parties with catered oysters and ice sculptures shaped like swans because Celeste believed subtlety was for people with smaller credit limits. I searched the county recorder, and there it was. A notice of default. My breath slowed. Not because I was surprised, because I had just found motive with a timestamp. Their mortgage was behind, not one missed payment. Several. There had been a loan modification request filed months earlier, followed by a warning notice, followed by another document that suggested foreclosure proceedings could begin if the arrears were not cured. Celeste's perfect house was not perfect. It was bleeding. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. For years, my sister had looked at my life like it was a failure because I had built it without luxury. Meanwhile, she had been living inside a mansion she could not afford, wearing confidence like a borrowed dress. I should have felt satisfaction. I did not. I felt colder than that. Because debt alone did not explain trying to get access to Lily's trust. Debt plus desperation did. I kept going. Credit card lawsuits are sometimes sealed under layers of embarrassment. But people like Celeste leave evidence everywhere because they believe image can outrun arithmetic. It cannot. I found one judgment tied to a luxury retailer card, then another old collection action connected to a private travel service, then a country club billing dispute that had been settled after 3 months. The amounts were not catastrophic by themselves, but together, they told the truth. Celeste's designer life was financed by delay. Delay the payment, delay the lawsuit, delay the shame, delay reality until someone else paid to make it disappear. Someone like my mother. Or, if they could get close enough, Lily. By 3 a.m., I had enough to call Nathan. I did not. That would have been emotional. Instead, I kept documenting. Screenshots with timestamps, PDF downloads, source links, record numbers, jurisdiction notes. A clean chain of information mattered. I could not afford sloppy evidence. I could not afford to become what they were accusing me of being. Unstable. Reckless. Obsessed. So I worked like every document might one day sit in front of a judge. Then I found the offshore link. It was not obvious. Adrian was smarter than Celeste. I will give him that. He did not put his name directly on everything. He knew how to create distance. But people who think they are brilliant often make arrogant mistakes. Northline Asset Services had made payments to a consulting entity registered in the Caribbean. Nothing unusual on its face. But the same entity appeared in a separate filing attached to a civil dispute involving another investment firm 3 years earlier. In that filing, one contact email included a middle initial and a number sequence, a dot Morgan 74. Adrian's middle name was Marcus. He was born in 1987, not 1974. So the number seemed wrong until I remembered something from a family dinner years earlier. Adrian once joked that his father used 74 in every password because it was the year he immigrated. I stared at the email address. A small mistake. A stupid mistake. The kind of mistake men like Adrian make because they believe no one will ever look closely enough. I looked closer. The offshore entity was connected to another company with a mailing address that used an old zip code from Adrian's childhood neighborhood. That meant nothing legally by itself, but professionally, it meant the wall had fingerprints. I kept digging until dawn. When sunlight finally started to pale the kitchen windows, I'd built the first version of what I called the Morgan map. At the center, Adrian Morgan. Around him, Morgan Bridge Capital, 3 subsidiaries, 2 offshore-linked entities, unpaid vendors, a distressed mortgage, credit issues, and suspicious transfers disguised as consulting payments. On the other side of the page, I wrote, Lily Trust, $3 million control path, custody to guardianship to child expenses, trust distributions. Then I circled one word. Why? Because even then, I knew what I had was not enough. It proved financial pressure. It proved motive. It did not prove the drug. It did not prove the conspiracy. It did not prove Celeste and Adrian had planned to use Lily's trust to save themselves. Not yet. At 7:30 a.m., I took Lily to school. I smiled at her teacher. I kissed Lily's forehead. I told her I loved her more than waffles, which was our private way of saying more than anything. Then I sat in my car in the school parking lot and called Nathan. He answered on the second ring. I was expecting your call, he said. You told me not to investigate recklessly. I did. I investigated legally. A pause. Then Nathan sighed. Of course you did. I found financial pressure, mortgage default, vendor disputes, possible shell entities, offshore routing, debt, a lot of debt. Send me nothing yet, he said immediately. That surprised me. What? Do not email me a pile of sensitive allegations from your personal account while emotions are high and litigation is active. We are going to do this correctly. I have public records. Good. We will preserve them correctly. We will have an investigator verify them. We will separate what you know from what you suspect. And you are not going to contact any third parties yourself. I know better than that. You know better professionally, Nathan said. Personally, you are a mother whose child was targeted. That changes people's risk tolerance. He was right. I hated that he was right. So, what do we do? You come to my office. Bring your notes. Bring your laptop. We will create an evidence protocol. After that, I am hiring a licensed investigator. If subpoenas become necessary, we use the court. If federal reporting becomes necessary, we do it through proper channels. Federal reporting. The words sat between us. Nathan, I said, there may be more here than civil fraud. How much more? I don't know yet, but Adrian's story about the crushed medication does not make sense. Toxicology will matter. I agree. And I know someone who needs to hear about the financial structure if the lab results come back bad. You mean Agent Ruiz? I went quiet. Agent Maya Ruiz worked with the Federal Financial Crimes and Narcotics Task Force. I had consulted on 2 asset tracing cases where her team needed someone to untangle corporate payment structures tied to illegal proceeds. She was sharp, careful, and impossible to charm. Exactly the kind of person Adrian Morgan would hate. I am not calling in a favor, I said. Good, Nathan replied, because favors create problems. Formal tips create records. That afternoon, in Nathan's office, we built the evidence file properly. His paralegals scanned and indexed everything. Nathan separated documents into categories: confirmed public records, litigation records, financial red flags, possible entity connections, and personal observations. Words matter, he reminded me. We do not call something laundering because it looks like laundering. We call it suspicious routing until someone with subpoena power proves more. I know. I am saying it anyway. The investigator Nathan hired was a retired fraud examiner named Paul Keene. He had the tired face of a man who had spent 30 years watching people lie badly. He reviewed my notes, asked 3 questions, and then looked at Nathan. She's not guessing, he said. Nathan did not smile, but his eyes flicked toward me. I know. Paul verified the property filings first, then the vendor disputes, then the subsidiary records. Then he found something I had missed. Medical payments. Not Celeste's, not Adrian's. A series of payments from one of Adrian's associated entities to a women's health clinic, then later to a pediatric practice, both in a part of the city where neither Celeste nor Adrian lived. The name attached to one apartment lease near those clinics was Tessa Lane. I had never heard of her, but the payments continued for more than 2 years. Rent, medical, childcare, a luxury apartment building. Nathan looked at the documents for a long time, then he said, Adrian has another household. Not a theory, not yet, but close enough that the room seemed to tilt. I almost laughed again. Of course. Of course the perfect husband had a secret life. Of course Celeste's fairy tale marriage was rotting from the inside while she was trying to steal from my daughter to keep the curtains closed. But even that was not the biggest discovery. The biggest discovery came 2 days later. Nathan called me while I was making Lily spaghetti. Are you alone? He asked. My hand tightened around the wooden spoon. Lily's in the living room. Step outside. I walked onto the back porch and closed the door. What happened? Toxicology came back. The yard went very still. And? It was not allergy medication. I already knew that, but hearing it confirmed made my knees weak. What was it? A restricted synthetic sedative, not something Adrian could casually explain as a crushed sleep aid. I closed my eyes. Lily's voice drifted faintly through the window, singing along with a cartoon. What does that mean, legally? I asked. It means Adrian's statement just became a problem for Adrian. And Celeste? It means the cup matters, the footage matters. Her handing it to Lily matters. Oh. I gripped the porch railing. Nathan, I know. No, I said. Listen to me. If that substance is restricted and Adrian's financial structure involves suspicious routing through shell entities, Evelyn, that is not just a family case. I know. Then Maya needs the file. She already has part of it. I opened my eyes. What? I submitted a formal tip this morning after confirming with the lab liaison that the toxicology created a sufficient basis. I did not include your personal theories. I included verified records, the civil lawsuit, the known toxicology issue, and the suspicious financial links. My breath came out slowly. What did she say? She said the task force has already been looking at a corporate laundering channel tied to illegal prescription narcotics. She did not confirm Adrian. She did not need to. The porch seemed to shift beneath my feet. For the first time, the shape of the nightmare became larger than my family. Celeste had not just married a man in debt. She had married a man who may have been laundering drug money through investment structures. And then that man's illegal sedative ended up in a pink cup meant for my daughter. I looked through the window. Lily was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, twirling spaghetti around her fork, safe for the moment because I had noticed powder on a rim. Anger moved through me then. Not hot, not wild, cold, useful. My family thought they were fighting one woman, one single mother they could isolate, smear, threaten, and bankrupt. They forgot I had spent my career inside the anatomy of fraud. They forgot I knew the difference between noise and evidence. They forgot that money, unlike family, does not lie to protect the golden child. That night, after Lily went to bed, I opened the Morgan map again. I added a new section. Toxicology. Restricted synthetic sedative task force interest. Possible narcotics laundering. Adrian's statement. False Celeste handoff. Video motive. Access to Lily Trust. Then I stared at the last line for a long time. Because the money trail had finally answered the question I had written at dawn. Why now? Because Adrian was collapsing. Because Celeste was desperate. because my parents were willing to sacrifice reality to protect their favorite daughter, because Lily's trust was not just a temptation, it was their exit plan. And the next document I received proved the lawsuit was never about Adrian's hospital bills. It was about my daughter. The settlement package arrived on a Thursday morning. Nathan received it first, which was good, because if it had come directly to me, I might have done something satisfying and legally stupid, like print it out, set it on fire in my kitchen sink, and mail the ashes to Adrian's attorney. Instead, Nathan called me at 9:06 a.m. His voice had that flat, careful quality lawyers use when they are trying not to sound angry before their client does. "They sent an offer," he said. I was in my office, staring at a spreadsheet for a corporate fraud case I suddenly could not care about. An offer? A settlement proposal. I leaned back in my chair. Let me guess. I admit fault, pay Adrian, apologize publicly, and agree not to sue Celeste for attempting to drug my child. Not exactly. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Nathan, you need to come in. I looked through the glass wall of my office at the city beyond it. People moved on sidewalks below, carrying coffee, checking phones, living inside ordinary problems. Parking tickets, late meetings, bad dates, things that did not involve their sister trying to use a sedative and a lawsuit to steal custody of their daughter. Tell me now, I said. I would rather walk you through it in person. Tell me now. There was a pause. Then Nathan said, they are offering to drop the $1 million civil claim. I said nothing. They will also agree to release their request for asset restrictions and withdraw opposition to your access to certain accounts. Still, I said nothing, because people like Adrian did not give up leverage for free. What do they want? I asked. Nathan exhaled. They want you to agree to a temporary guardianship arrangement. The office around me seemed to go quiet. My hand tightened around the phone. For Lily? Yes. With who? You already know. I closed my eyes. Celeste. Of course it was Celeste. The woman who had handed my daughter a contaminated drink now wanted legal authority over her under the language of protection. For a few seconds, I could hear only my own breathing. Then Nathan said, Evelyn, listen to me carefully. This document is not a normal settlement offer. It is a trap. I know. No, I need you to understand the structure. They are not simply asking for Lily to stay with Celeste for a few weeks. The language gives Celeste and Adrian decision-making authority over Lily's residence, schooling, medical care, and access to trust distributions during the period of guardianship. My mouth went dry. Trust distributions. Yes, but Adrian is the plaintiff in the civil suit, and Celeste is being framed as the stable family placement. I stood up too quickly, and my chair rolled backward into the wall. Stable? I whispered. I know. She drugged my child. Allegedly, Nathan said, because he was my lawyer and could not help himself. She drugged my child. His voice softened. I know. I pressed my palm against the window. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, I felt something in me become very still. That stillness scared people who knew me well. It scared me too. Because it did not feel like rage. It felt like clarity. They were never going to stop at money, I said. No. They wanted the lawsuit to scare me. They wanted the asset restrictions to corner me. They wanted the social media posts to isolate me. Then they wanted to offer me a way out. Yes. And the price was Lily. Nathan did not answer. He did not need to. I went to his office an hour later. The settlement package sat on the conference table in a neat stack. White paper, black text, clean margins. Evil often looks very professional when attorneys are paid enough to format it properly. Nathan had marked the worst sections with yellow tabs. I sat across from him and read every line. The words were soft. That was what made them so disgusting. Temporary family placement, child-centered stabilization, neutral protective environment, pending resolution of criminal and civil concerns, access to appropriate financial resources for the minor's health, safety, educational continuity, and standard of living. I read that last phrase 3 times. Standard of living. There it was. The doorway. If Lily lived with Celeste, then Celeste could argue that Lily's standard of living required certain expenses: housing, security, education, therapy, transportation, legal fees, caregiver support, family stabilization costs. 1,000 reasonable words wrapped around theft. I had seen it before in estate cases. Money never disappears all at once when thieves are patient. It bleeds. A little here for the child, a little there for the home, a reimbursement, a professional fee, a temporary distribution, a necessary expense. By the time anyone looks closely, the account is thinner, the paperwork is thick, and everyone responsible says they were acting in the child's best interest. I pushed the papers away before I tore them in half. Nathan watched me. "Say it," I said. "Say what?" "What you think." "I think Adrian is in financial trouble. I think Celeste knows more than she is admitting, but less than Adrian does. I think your parents are willing to testify that you are unstable if it helps Celeste. I think this settlement offer is designed to turn your fear into consent. And I think if you sign this, we will spend years trying to unwind it." My throat tightened. Would they win? In court? Yes. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Not easily. Not with the footage. Not with toxicology. Not with their contradictions. But, Evelyn, family court can be unpredictable when people create enough smoke. Their strategy is not necessarily to win cleanly. It is to exhaust you, complicate your custody, and get temporary access. Temporary orders can become powerful if the wrong judge sees the wrong record at the wrong moment. I hated every word, because every word was true. People think being right protects you. It does not. Being right is only the beginning. You still have to prove it. You still have to survive the time between the lie and the proof. That afternoon, I picked Lily up from school early. I told myself it was because she had a dentist appointment the next morning and I wanted a quiet evening. That was not the real reason. The real reason was that I needed to see her. She came out of the classroom with a paper crown on her head and blue marker on her fingers. "Mommy," she said, "we made kingdoms today." "What kind of kingdom did you make?" "A fox kingdom, but nice foxes, not biting foxes. Very important distinction." She nodded seriously. "They have laws." I smiled despite everything. "What laws?" "No stealing snacks, no being mean to little foxes, and everybody has to say sorry when they hurt someone." My chest hurt. Children make morality sound so simple because it is simple to them. Do not steal. Do not hurt. Say sorry. Adults are the ones who build legal language around cruelty and call it complexity. That night, Lily sat at the kitchen table drawing while I made grilled cheese and tomato soup. She was quiet for longer than usual. Then she asked, "Why hasn't Grandma called me?" The knife in my hand stopped moving. I had prepared for questions about school, questions about Adrian, questions about why Brooke was picking her up more often. But not that. Not Grandma. I turned off the stove and sat across from her. Lily looked down at her drawing. It was a house with yellow windows and a purple fox on the porch. "Did I do something bad?" she asked. "No," I said immediately. "No, baby, you did nothing bad." "Then why is everyone mad?" I reached across the table and took her little marker-stained hand. "Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, and when they do, they don't always know how to tell the truth about it." She thought about that. "Like blaming someone else?" "Yes." "Are they blaming you?" I swallowed. "They are trying to." Her eyes filled with tears. "But you didn't do anything." "I know. Do they know?" That question almost undid me, because yes, they knew. That was the horror. My mother knew, my father knew, Celeste knew, Adrian knew, and they were still doing it. I squeezed Lily's hand gently. "The truth is going to come out," I said. "Promise?" I wanted to be careful. I knew promises could become traps when adults made them out of fear, but this one was not optional. "I promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe." Lily slid out of her chair and climbed into my lap, even though she was getting too big for it, and neither of us cared. "Will anyone take me away?" she whispered. I wrapped both arms around her. "No." The word came out low and absolute. Not a hope, a vow. "Nobody is taking you away from me." She cried quietly against my shoulder, and I held her until the soup went cold. After she fell asleep that night, I stood in the doorway of her room for a long time. Her nightlight cast stars across the ceiling. Her sketchbooks were stacked beside her bed. One butterfly barrette sat on her nightstand where she had forgotten to put it away. The settlement package was downstairs in my bag. Waiting, threatening, pretending to be reasonable. I thought about my grandfather, about how carefully he had written that trust, about how he must have known, even then, that money brings out the truth in families who survive on appearances. He had tried to protect Lily. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I returned to Nathan's office. He had coffee waiting. "You ready to discuss response strategy?" he asked. "Yes." He opened his notebook. "We do not reject this in anger." "I know." "We do not send an emotional email." "I know." "We do not accuse them of attempted kidnapping in writing, even though I understand why you would want to." I really would. The correct response is controlled. I sat down. "What does controlled look like?" Nathan turned the settlement package toward me. "We invite them to a formal settlement conference." I stared at him. "You want me in a room with them?" "Yes." "No." "Hear me out." I leaned back, arms crossed. Nathan continued, calm as ever. "They believe you are under pressure. They believe the lawsuit, social fallout, and custody threat have weakened you. They expect you to negotiate from fear. That makes them careless. I am not putting Lily on the table. You are not. You are letting them believe there is a table." The room went quiet. Nathan's eyes held mine. "We use the meeting to clarify their demands, expose the financial motive, and document their intent through proper legal channels. No secret recordings, no theatrics, no ambush that compromises the case. Just a structured conference with attorneys present, notes taken, and every statement tied to the written proposal they already sent." "And federal?" "Maya's team is moving independently. Nothing we do in that room should be necessary for their warrants. But if Adrian or Celeste makes admissions, contradictions, or threats in front of counsel, that helps." I looked at the settlement papers again. For days, I had felt like the hunted thing, cornered, watched, measured. But now I saw the offer for what it really was, not just a threat, an opening. They had put their greed in writing. They had shown me the path they intended to use. All I had to do was let them walk farther down it. "What do we tell them?" I asked. Nathan picked up his pen. "That you are prepared to discuss terms." I laughed once quietly. It did not sound like humor. It sounded like a door locking. Celeste must have heard quickly because that evening my mother texted me for the first time since the porch threat. "Finally! Do what is best for Lily." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I screenshotted it and sent it to Nathan. After that, I went to my office closet and pulled down the fireproof document box where I kept Lily's trust paperwork, my grandfather's letters, and every legal record I hoped never to need. I printed the financial dossier. Not everything, not recklessly, only what Nathan had cleared: public records, verified filings, confirmed debts, the mortgage default, the vendor disputes, the suspicious entity map, the toxicology summary, the settlement language. Then I placed the pages into labeled folders. Adrian Morgan liked polished rooms and controlled narratives. Celeste liked audiences. Marjorie liked pressure. Douglas liked hiding behind whichever lie kept him most comfortable. They all thought I was walking into that conference to surrender. I told their lawyers I was ready to discuss terms. What I did not tell them was that I was bringing every secret Adrian ever buried. The week before the settlement conference, I learned something important about revenge. Real revenge is not loud. It is not throwing wine in someone's face. It is not screaming the perfect sentence in a crowded room. It is not breaking dishes, posting receipts online, or making sure everyone knows you were right before the facts are ready to carry their own weight. That kind of revenge feels good for about 5 minutes. Then the other side's attorney gets to call you unstable. Real revenge is quiet, it is organized, it is dated, labeled, backed up, legally obtained, and reviewed by counsel before anyone else ever sees it. So I built the trap one folder at a time. Nathan's office became the center of everything. Not my kitchen table anymore, not my personal laptop at midnight, not screenshots scattered across my phone like emotional shrapnel. We moved everything into structure. Nathan called it evidence management. I called it survival. There were 7 folders. The first was titled Civil Lawsuit Contradictions. Inside it, Nathan placed Adrian's complaint, Celeste's first statement to police, Adrian's hospital statement, and the security footage timeline. On paper, their story looked confident. Side by side, it looked diseased. Celeste said, "I poisoned Adrian." Then Adrian said Celeste accidentally put his medication in the wrong cup. Then they claimed I knowingly moved a berry drink into his hand. Then their lawsuit described me as interfering with beverages while carefully avoiding the fact that the original cup had been handed to Lily. Lies can sound strong alone. Together, they start arguing with each other. The second folder was titled Financial Insolvency, Mortgage Default, Past Due Notices, Country Club Billing Dispute, Luxury Retailer Judgment, Travel Account Collections, Credit Card Pressure. Not one document screamed collapse by itself. But together, they showed the truth behind Celeste's white column mansion and charity luncheon smile. Her life was not wealthy. It was delayed bankruptcy wearing designer perfume. The third folder was titled Corporate Entities and Offshore Links. That one was Nathan's favorite and my most dangerous. Not because it was emotional, because it was technical. Morgan Bridge Capital, Morgan Bridge Strategic Holdings, MBC Advisory Partners, Northline Asset Services, consulting entities with no meaningful public footprint. Payments routed through companies that sounded legitimate until you asked what service they actually provided. Nathan was careful with language. No conclusions, he told me, only facts. So the labels did not say fraud. They said suspicious routing. They did not say laundering. They said offshore linked payment structures. They did not say Adrian was guilty. They said Adrian's name, initials, family identifiers, or associated addresses appeared in records connected to those structures. Precision mattered. Precision was the difference between accusation and evidence. The fourth folder was titled IRS and Tax Pressure. Paul Keene, the investigator Nathan hired, had verified tax liens and enforcement signals connected to Adrian's financial life. Again, not enough by itself to explain everything, but enough to show pressure. And pressure was motive. The fifth folder was titled Tessa Lane. I hated that folder, not because I cared about Adrian cheating on Celeste. Their marriage was not my tragedy. I hated it because every page proved how many lives Adrian had built on lies. Apartment lease records, payments tied to a luxury building across town, medical bills, pediatric invoices, childcare payments, a diamond necklace purchased through a card Celeste clearly never knew about, and one photograph from a public social media account Nathan's investigator had captured before it disappeared. Tessa Lane, holding a toddler with Adrian's eyes. I looked at that photo only once. The child was innocent, just like Lily. That made Adrian's choices even uglier. He had not only risked my daughter, he had risked every child near the blast radius of his greed. The sixth folder was titled Trust Fund Motive. This was the one that made Nathan slow down every time he handled it. It included Lily's trust documents, the settlement proposal, the guardianship language, my mother's text message, and the specific clauses that would have allowed Celeste and Adrian access to distributions for Lily's care, standard of living, and family stabilization. The language looked harmless to anyone who had never watched money stolen in slow motion. To me, it looked like a loaded gun. The seventh folder was titled Threats and Pattern of Conduct. Celeste's social media video, screenshots from relatives repeating her claims, my mother's messages. The porch threat summarized in my written timeline, Douglas's statement about Lily needing neutral family placement. The school pickup incidents where other parents suddenly acted afraid of me. The professional consequences. The isolation. Not all of it was legally equal. Nathan reminded me of that often. Some of it was evidence, some of it was context, some of it was simply pain written down so nobody could later tell me I had imagined it. And I needed that, because when your family spends your whole life rewriting reality, documentation becomes a form of sanity. 2 days before the conference, Agent Maya Ruiz came to Nathan's office. She did not arrive dramatically. No sirens, no badge slammed on a table, no movie scene announcement that justice had finally entered the building. Maya wore a dark blazer, carried one slim case file, and had the steady expression of a woman who did not waste motion. I had worked with her before, but this was different. Before, I had been a consultant. Now, I was a mother sitting beside a lawyer, trying not to ask if federal prison was good enough for people who saw a 7-year-old as a bank account. Maya shook my hand. Evelyn, Agent Ruiz. Her eyes softened just slightly. How is Lily? Safe? For now? I nodded once. For now. She sat across from me and opened her file. I can't share every detail of an active investigation, she said. I understand. But I can tell you this. Your information did not create this case from nothing. It connected several pieces we were already examining. Nathan leaned back slightly. I stayed still. Maya continued. The toxicology result matters. The financial structures matter. Adrian Morgan's professional access matters. We are not relying on your family dispute as the foundation for federal action. That was important. Nathan had drilled it into me for days. The settlement conference could not be the only trigger. If federal agents walked in based purely on one angry family meeting, Adrian's attorneys would attack everything. They would call it personal, contaminated, retaliatory. But if warrants were already supported by toxicology, financial records, suspicious transactions, and independent investigation, then the meeting became something else. Not the foundation, the pressure point. Maya looked at me directly. Do not try to force admissions. I won't. Do not threaten him. I won't. Do not exaggerate what you know. I know. Let silence work. That, more than anything, sounded like advice from someone who understood people. Guilty people hate silence. They rush to fill it. They explain too much. They correct details they should not know. They attack when the truth gets too close. Nathan closed one folder and placed his hand on top of it. The meeting is non-confidential, he said. All parties have agreed representatives may take notes. It is not mediation. No secret recording, no hidden devices, no theatrical surprises that compromise admissibility. Maya nodded. Good. I looked from one of them to the other. So I just sit there? Nathan almost smiled. No. You let them believe they are negotiating with a cornered woman. Then, when the moment is right, you decline to sign and ask financial questions they are not prepared to answer. Questions? Controlled ones, Maya added. And when Adrian reacts, do not chase him. Let him choose his own words. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid of Celeste. I was. But that was not the whole reason. I could face Celeste's hatred. I could face Adrian's arrogance. I could even face my mother's ability to look at me like I had wounded her by refusing to be destroyed. What scared me was the possibility of losing control. Not yelling, not crying, not standing up and saying every sentence I had swallowed since childhood. So I practiced in my bathroom mirror, in the car, at my desk. I practiced saying, I am not signing that. I practiced saying, please explain why a temporary guardianship arrangement requires access to trust distributions. I practiced saying, let's discuss Adrian's financial stability. I practiced breathing after each sentence. Slow, measured, not because they deserved my calm, because Lily did. The morning of the conference, I packed my bag carefully. Legal pad, pen, folder copies, phone, keys, a granola bar I knew I would not eat. Then, at the last second, I added one more thing. A drawing Lily had made the night before. It showed our house with yellow windows, a purple fox on the porch, and two stick figures holding hands under a huge orange sun. At the bottom, in Lily's uneven handwriting, she had written, Mommy keeps me safe. I folded it carefully and tucked it into the inside pocket of my bag. Not because it was evidence, because it was the only exhibit that mattered. Before I left, I checked on Lily in the kitchen. Brooke was helping her with cereal, pretending not to watch me too closely. Lily looked up. Are you going to work? Something like that. Will you be home for dinner? I kissed the top of her head. Yes. She held out her pinky. I wrapped mine around it. Promise? Promise. Brooke walked me to the door. You don't have to be okay, she said quietly. I know. You just have to come back. I looked over my shoulder at Lily, who was now explaining to Brooke why cereal tasted better from the blue bowl than the green one. I will. When I stepped into that glass conference room 2 hours later, Celeste was already there. She wore white. Of course she did. White blazer, white dress, pearl earrings, hair swept back softly from her face. The grieving sister, the stable aunt, the woman who had spent her entire life being protected by lighting, timing, and our mother's devotion. She looked at me and smiled, not warmly, victoriously, like she had already pictured me signing, like she had already imagined Lily's room in her house, like the trust fund was already within reach. Adrian sat beside her in a navy suit, one hand resting on the table, wedding band gleaming under the conference room lights. Marjorie and Douglas sat behind them. My mother's eyes moved over me, judging my clothes, my posture, my face. My father looked tired. Not sorry, just tired. Nathan stood beside me. He did not touch my arm. He did not whisper encouragement. He simply opened his briefcase and placed our folders on the table. That was better. I sat down. Across from me, Celeste's smile widened. That was her last mistake. The conference room was designed to make people feel small. That was the first thing I noticed. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooked the downtown skyline from the 32nd floor. The table was long, black, and polished so perfectly it reflected the faces around it. The chairs were expensive but uncomfortable, like even the furniture expected you to sit up straight and behave. Adrian's attorneys had chosen the location deliberately. A high-rise law office, a receptionist who looked like she had been trained not to blink, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than my first car. Everything about the space said power. Everything about the people across from me said they expected me to be intimidated by it. Celeste sat directly opposite me, dressed in white like innocence was something she could put on with a zipper. Her hands were folded neatly on the table, one thumb stroking the edge of her wedding ring. She looked composed, almost serene, but I knew my sister too well. Celeste did not get calm when she felt peaceful. She got calm when she thought she had won. Adrian sat beside her in a navy suit, face pale but controlled. He had lost weight since the hospital. Not enough for strangers to notice, but enough for me to see the tension under his polished skin. His jaw was tighter, his eyes moved more often. His confidence had hairline cracks. Behind them sat my parents. Marjorie wore a dark green dress and pearls, her posture so stiff she looked carved. Douglas sat beside her, hands clasped, eyes lowered. He looked like a man attending a funeral for someone he had helped kill, but still wanted credit for grieving. Nathan sat to my right. He placed one yellow legal pad in front of himself, one pen, and nothing else. No dramatic stacks of paper, no visible evidence folders, no performance. That was why he was dangerous. Adrian's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Victor Harlan, began with a sympathetic sigh. "Ms. Carter," he said, "we appreciate your willingness to attend today." I looked at him. "I'm here." He smiled like that was almost obedience. "We all understand this has been emotionally difficult." Nathan's pen moved once across the page. I said nothing. Victor continued, "Our goal is to avoid further harm, especially to the minor child involved." The minor child. Not Lily. Never Lily. People avoid names when names make cruelty harder. Celeste leaned forward slightly. "That is all we want, Evie," she said softly, "for Lily to be safe." My stomach tightened at the nickname, Evie. She only used it when she wanted to remind me of childhood, of old rules, of my old place beneath her. I kept my face still. "Lily is safe with me," I said. Marjorie made a quiet sound behind Celeste. Not quite a laugh, not quite a scoff. Nathan turned his head just enough to look at her. She went silent. Victor opened a folder. Given the pending civil claim, the ongoing police inquiry, and the concerns raised by multiple family members regarding your emotional stability, we believe this proposal offers the most practical path forward. My emotional stability. There it was again, the phrase they had chosen because it could carry anything they needed. Anger, fear, motherhood. refusal, survival. If I cried, I was unstable. If I yelled, I was unstable. If I fought, I was unstable. If I refused to hand over my child to the woman who had nearly drugged her, I was unstable. Victor slid a document across the table. The guardianship agreement. I did not touch it. Celeste looked at the document, then at me. Her mouth softened into something that almost resembled pity. "You don't have to keep fighting," she said. "No one is saying you don't love Lily." That sentence was so rehearsed, I could almost see the fingerprints of her lawyer on it. Adrian added, "This would be temporary." His voice was smooth, too smooth. "Until things settle down," he said. "Until the investigation is resolved. Until everyone feels confident Lily is in a stable environment." Nathan spoke for the first time. "Define temporary." Victor looked at him. 90 days, subject to review. With Celeste and Adrian exercising residential custody? Temporary family placement, Victor corrected. Nathan wrote that down. And access to trust distributions? Victor's smile thinned. Only as necessary for the child's standard of living. I felt Celeste watching me. She wanted me to react. She wanted me to flinch at the word trust. So I did not. Marjorie leaned forward from the second row. "Evelyn, this is your chance to show maturity." There she was, my mother, still convinced motherhood was something she could grade me on. "You have been through a frightening ordeal," she continued. "No one denies that. But Lily needs more than fear and stubbornness. She needs a real family." I looked at her then, not sharply, not angrily, just looked. For the first time all morning, my mother's confidence wavered. Douglas cleared his throat. "Family court may not be kind if this becomes hostile," he said. I almost smiled. There was my father, finally using his voice. Not for truth, for pressure. Adrian's second attorney, a younger woman with a tablet in front of her, added, "The civil claim remains active. Sir Morgan suffered severe medical trauma. The financial damages alone are substantial. Litigation will be expensive for all parties." Translation: "We can bleed you." Victor folded his hands. "Ms. Carter, we are prepared to dismiss the civil action if you sign today. Asset restrictions can be lifted. No public escalation. No further embarrassment." No further embarrassment. My daughter had almost been drugged, and they were offering me embarrassment management. Celeste's eyes shone with something that was not tears. Expectation. She thought I was tired enough. She thought the lawsuit had worked. She thought the whispers at school, the clients pulling back, the threats, the texts, the sleepless nights had softened me into someone who would trade Lily for silence. Victor uncapped a pen and set it on top of the agreement. The sound of plastic against paper seemed impossibly loud. "Take your time," he said. Celeste relaxed, just slightly. Adrian sat back. My mother exhaled through her nose like she was already relieved. I reached toward the pen. Celeste's lips parted. There it was. Her victory face. The one she had worn when she got the better bedroom as a child, when my parents paid for her wedding, when my graduation got swallowed by her engagement, when she realized our mother would always choose her first and justify it later. I picked up the pen, then I placed it back down, parallel to the edge of the document. Neat, deliberate, final. "I am not signing away my daughter," I said. The room changed, not loudly. No one shouted yet, but the air tightened. Celeste blinked. "Evie," I turned toward her, "but since everyone here is so concerned about financial stability," I said, "let's talk about where Adrian's money actually went." For the first time, Adrian's mask slipped. Only for a second. But I saw it. So did Nathan. Victor's eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry?" Nathan opened his briefcase. Slowly, he removed the first folder and placed it in front of him. "We are prepared to discuss the financial assumptions underlying your proposal," Nathan said, "especially because your written settlement language requests access to trust distributions for Lily Carter's alleged standard of living while placed with the Morgans." Victor's voice cooled. "This is a settlement conference, Mr. Rowe, not a fishing expedition." "Agreed," Nathan said. "So we will stay with documented facts." He opened the folder. I looked at Adrian. Not Celeste, not my parents. Adrian. "Your house is behind on payments," I said. Celeste's head turned toward him. Adrian did not move. "That is not relevant," Victor said. "It is relevant," Nathan replied. "When your clients are presenting themselves as financially stable guardians for a child with a $3 million trust." Celeste's face tightened. "What is she talking about?" she asked Adrian. Adrian gave a small laugh. "Nothing. Mortgage timing issue. Administrative." I opened the folder Nathan slid toward me. "Several missed payments," I said. "A loan modification request, a notice of default, potential foreclosure pressure if arrears were not cured." Celeste stared at him. "Adrian?" He touched her hand, but she pulled it away. "Celeste, not now." Not denial, that was what I noticed. Not she's lying, not those documents are fake. Just not now. So I continued. "The country club billing dispute was also administrative, I assume?" Celeste's face went pale. Marjorie sat up straighter. "What dispute?" I turned one page. "Luxury retailer judgment, travel account collections, credit card pressure, past due obligations tied to multiple accounts." Adrian's jaw hardened. Victor said, "Ms. Carter, unless you can establish relevance." "The relevance," Nathan interrupted calmly, "is motive." The word landed in the center of the table. Motive. Celeste looked between Adrian and me, her confidence shrinking by the second. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because Celeste had thought she was walking into a room where I would be humiliated. Instead, she was learning she had married a collapse wrapped in a tailored suit. "You told me we were fine," she whispered to Adrian. Adrian's eyes flashed. "We are fine." "No," I said. "You are leveraged." His gaze snapped to me. There he was. The real Adrian, not charming, not polished, not concerned, angry. "You don't know anything about my finances," he said. "I know enough to know Lily's trust looked like a solution." Celeste flinched. My mother stood halfway. "How dare you?" Nathan did not raise his voice. "Mrs. Whitaker, sit down." The room went quiet. No one spoke to my mother like that. That was probably why it worked. She sat. Victor leaned forward. "Mr. Rowe, if your client is suggesting my client pursued guardianship for financial gain, that is a serious accusation." Nathan turned another page. "We are suggesting the written proposal speaks for itself." He slid a copy of their own settlement language forward. "Temporary guardianship, residential placement, decision-making authority, access to trust distributions for care, education, housing, stabilization, and standard of living, combined with verified financial distress. The inference is reasonable." Victor's mouth tightened. Adrian looked at Celeste. "Do not listen to this." But Celeste was listening now. For once in her life, she was listening to someone other than herself. I opened the second folder. "Let's talk about Morgan Bridge Capital." Adrian froze. There it was. The deeper fear. House debt embarrassed him. Business records terrified him. "Evelyn," Nathan said softly. "A reminder. Careful." I nodded. "Public filings show several associated entities," I said. "Morgan Bridge Strategic Holdings, MBC Advisory Partners, Northline Asset Services. Victor's voice sharpened. My client's business operations are outside the scope of this discussion. Not when those operations relate to his claimed damages, income loss, financial stability, and the request to control funds belonging to a minor, Nathan said. Adrian laughed once. You have no idea what you're reading. That was the first mistake he made out loud. I looked at him. Then explain it. He said nothing. Explain why inactive subsidiaries with minimal public operations are receiving and routing consulting payments. I said, explain the vendor disputes. Explain the offshore linked entities. Explain why one contact record uses your middle initial and a family-linked identifier. Adrian's face went still. Celeste whispered, offshore? I kept my voice level. No conclusions, just documents. Maya's advice echoed in my mind. Let silence work. So I stopped speaking. The room filled with it. 10 seconds. 15. Adrian hated everyone. Finally, he leaned forward. You're a forensic accountant, not a prosecutor. No, I said. I'm a mother. That landed harder than I expected. Even Douglas looked up. I opened the third folder. IRS liens, I said. Adrian's hand curled on the table. Victor spoke quickly. This is highly improper. Then object in court, Nathan said. The younger attorney beside Victor looked nervous now. She knew what he knew. Some of this was outside what they had expected. Some of it was dangerous. Not because every piece was a smoking gun, but because there were too many pieces for coincidence to feel comfortable. Celeste's voice trembled. Adrian, are we in trouble? He turned on her. Stop asking stupid questions in front of them. The room went silent. There it was. Not the charming husband, not the protective partner, the man underneath. Celeste recoiled as if he had slapped her. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she did not know which version of reality to defend. I could have stopped there. Debt, shell companies, IRS pressure. That would have been enough to crack the image, but not enough to break the alliance. Celeste and Adrian still had one shared interest: survival. As long as Celeste believed Adrian's lies were for their life together, she might continue protecting him. As long as Adrian believed Celeste would stay quiet to preserve status, he might continue using her. So I opened the fifth folder, Tessa Lane. Adrian saw the label. His face changed before anyone else understood why. That was how Celeste knew to be afraid. What is that? She asked. I did not answer immediately. Nathan slid one page forward. Apartment lease summary, payment records, medical expenses, childcare payments, a jewelry purchase. Celeste stared at the documents. Her eyes moved faster and faster, trying to assemble the story before her heart could. Who is Tessa Lane? She asked. Adrian said, no one. Too quickly, too sharply, the worst possible answer. I looked at Celeste. She lives in a luxury apartment across town, I said, paid for through entities connected to Adrian. There are medical payments, pediatric bills, childcare expenses. Celeste stopped breathing. For the first time all day, I saw something in her face that looked real. Not performance, not manipulation, pain. She has a child? Celeste whispered. I said nothing. Nathan placed one final page on the table. A public photograph captured before the account disappeared. Tessa Lane holding a toddler, a little boy, dark curls, Adrian's eyes. Celeste looked at the photo, then at Adrian, then back at the photo. No, she said. Adrian's face hardened. Celeste, no, do not do this here. She laughed. It was small and broken and frightening. Do this here? She repeated. You have a child? Adrian looked around the room, calculating damage. Not remorse. Damage. That is not what this meeting is about, he said. Celeste stood so fast her chair scraped backward. You have a child? Victor said. Mrs. Morgan, I advise you not to. Shut up, Celeste snapped. The room froze. I had never heard Celeste speak to an attorney that way. Maybe she had never had a reason to. Her perfect life was not just financially ruined, it was fake. Adrian stood too. Sit down, he said under his breath. Celeste stared at him like she had never seen him before. I risked everything for you. The sentence came out sharp and raw. Adrian's eyes flashed toward her. Victor went very still. Nathan's pen stopped moving. There it was. A crack wide enough for truth to show through. What did you risk, Celeste? I asked quietly. Her head turned toward me. For a second, she looked like she might answer. Then Adrian grabbed her wrist, not violently enough to be theatrical, firmly enough to control. Do not say another word. Celeste looked down at his hand. Something in her broke. She yanked herself free. You told me it was temporary, she hissed. You told me once we had access, everything would stabilize. Marjorie stood. Celeste, stop. But Celeste was not listening to our mother anymore. For the first time in her life, the golden child had been betrayed by someone she considered above consequences. That made her dangerous. You told me Evelyn would fold, Celeste said to Adrian. You said she was weak when it came to Lily. You said if CPS got involved and Mom and Dad backed us, no judge would leave a child with someone under investigation. My mother's face went white. Douglas whispered, Celeste. Adrian pointed at her. You wanted that money as much as I did. Celeste slapped him. The sound cracked through the conference room, not hard enough to injure, hard enough to end the performance. Victor shot to his feet. Everyone needs to calm down. But calm had left the room. Adrian's mask was gone now, his face twisted with panic and fury. You stupid, spoiled... Don't you dare, Celeste said. I covered for you. I lied for you. I let everyone think she was unstable because you said we were drowning. I sat very still. My heart was pounding, but my hands were calm because there it was. Not a full confession, not clean, not complete, but enough. Enough to prove the alliance was breaking, enough to show intent, enough to show that the settlement was not about safety. It was about access. Marjorie moved toward Celeste, eyes wide with fear. Baby, stop talking. Baby, even now, even after hearing that Celeste had helped target Lily, my mother's instinct was still to protect her favorite child from consequences. Not Lily. Celeste. Celeste turned toward her. You said she didn't deserve that money anyway. The room went dead silent. Marjorie looked like the floor had vanished beneath her. I looked at my mother. She opened her mouth, closed it. For once, no rewrite came quickly enough. Douglas stood slowly. This has gone too far. I almost laughed. Too far. Not when Lily was handed the cup. Not when they lied to police. Not when they threatened custody. Not when they tried to force guardianship. Only now, when the truth started naming them. Adrian suddenly looked at Victor. We're done here. Victor nodded quickly. This conference is over. Nathan closed the folder. Agreed. But Adrian was already moving toward the door. His confidence had returned in a frantic, ugly way. You think this means anything? He snapped at me. You think some public records and family drama scare me? You have no idea who you're dealing with. I looked at him. For the first time all day, I let him see exactly how little fear I had left. "No, Adrian, I'm bad," I said. "You had no idea who you were dealing with." He reached for the conference room door. Before he could open it, the handle turned from the other side. The door swung inward. Agent Maya Ruiz stepped into the room wearing a dark blazer, her badge clipped at her belt. A second federal agent entered behind her. The room went still. Adrian's hand dropped from the door. Maya looked at him with calm, professional eyes. "Adrian Morgan," she said. His face drained of color. Celeste whispered, "What is happening?" Maya did not look at her. She looked only at Adrian. "We need to talk." For one perfect second, nobody moved. Not Adrian, not Celeste, not my parents, not even Victor Harlan, who had spent the entire meeting acting like the conference room belonged to him because his name was printed on the building directory downstairs. Agent Maya Ruiz stood in the doorway with the kind of calm that made panic look embarrassing. She did not raise her voice. She did not rush. She did not need to. The second agent behind her stepped inside and closed the door with a soft click. That sound finished what my folders had started. It ended the illusion that this was a family disagreement. Adrian's face had gone gray. "What is this? Oh," he demanded. His voice cracked on the last word. Maya looked at him the way I had seen her look at witnesses who mistook volume for control. "Adrian Morgan," she said. "We have a federal warrant." Victor moved first. "Agent Ruiz, I am counsel for Mr. Morgan in this civil matter. I need to understand the basis for—" "This is not about your civil matter," Maya said. Victor stopped. That was the first time all day I saw him truly lose his rhythm. Adrian's eyes shot toward me. "You did this." I said nothing. Maya did not look at me. That was important. She kept her attention on Adrian because this was not my revenge wearing a badge. This was an investigation that had outgrown my family's lies. "You hacked me," Adrian snapped. "You broke into private records." Nathan's voice was calm. "No, she did not." Adrian pointed at me. "She is obsessed. She has been stalking my finances. She manufactured this because she hates my wife." Celeste made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had not been so broken. "Your wife?" she whispered. Adrian ignored her. Maya stepped farther into the room. "The warrant is supported by independent financial records, toxicology findings, subpoenaed transaction data, and evidence gathered through an ongoing task force investigation." The younger attorney beside Victor went pale. Victor turned slowly toward Adrian. "What toxicology findings?" Adrian's mouth opened. Nothing came out. That was the moment I knew his lawyers had not been told everything, not the real everything. Maybe Adrian had told them enough to build a civil case, enough to blame me, enough to argue confusion, allergy, emotional distress. But he had not told them the pink drink contained a restricted synthetic sedative tied to a narcotics distribution channel. Because men like Adrian never believe their lies will have to survive chemistry. Maya continued. The substance recovered from the cup at Ms. Carter's residence was not allergy medication. It was not an over-the-counter sleep aid. It was a restricted synthetic sedative linked to an illegal prescription drug distribution network currently under federal investigation. Celeste turned toward Adrian so slowly it looked painful. "You said it would just make Lily sleepy." The words slipped out before she seemed to realize she had said them. Everything stopped. Marjorie gasped. Douglas closed his eyes. Victor said, "Mrs. Morgan, do not say another word." But it was too late. The room had heard her. Nathan's pen moved. Maya's expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Adrian spun toward Celeste. Shut up. Celeste stepped back from him. No, she said. No, you do not get to tell me to shut up. Not after this. Celeste, Marjorie pleaded. Baby, listen to your attorney. But Celeste was staring at Adrian like she had finally found the monster and hated that it was standing beside her. You told me it was harmless, she said. You told me it would look like Evelyn let Lily get into something. You told me no one would get hurt. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. For a second, I thought she might finally look at me. She did not. She looked at Celeste. Always Celeste. Maya nodded once to the second agent. He moved toward Adrian. Mr. Morgan, turn around. Adrian stepped back. No, absolutely not. This is absurd. Victor lifted both hands slightly. Agent Ruiz, my client is willing to cooperate. There is no need for... Mr. Morgan is being taken into custody, Maya said. Adrian's mask fully shattered. Custody. That word did to him what trust had done to Celeste. It made the consequences real. He looked at me again, and this time there was no polish left. No charm. No calculated pity. Just hatred and disbelief. You think you won? He said. I still did not answer, because I had learned something by then. People like Adrian do not want answers. They want reactions they can use as evidence. The second agent took Adrian's arm and turned him toward the table. Adrian resisted just enough to make it ugly. Get your hands off me, he snapped. Do not make this harder, the agent said. The cuffs clicked around Adrian's wrists. Celeste made a strangled sound. Not grief, shock, maybe humiliation. Maybe the sound of a woman realizing the man she had helped protect was about to protect only himself. Maya began reading Adrian his rights. You have the right to remain silent. The words filled the conference room with a cold, official finality. Adrian stared straight ahead, breathing hard. When Maya finished, he spoke through his teeth. I want to make a statement. Victor nearly lunged. No, you do not. Adrian turned on him. You work for me. Then listen to me, Victor hissed. Do not speak. But Adrian's survival instinct had already chosen a new path. The same thing that made him launder money through shell entities, lie about toxicology, and sue the woman whose child had been targeted, now told him there was only one way out. Blame Celeste first. She planned the child angle, Adrian said. Celeste recoiled. Maya looked at him. You can speak with counsel present. I want it noted that Celeste was the one who said Lily would be easier to access if Evelyn looked unstable. Adrian! Celeste screamed. He kept going, frantic now. She hated Evelyn. She hated that the old man left the money to Lily. She said Evelyn did not deserve to control it. She said her parents would back her if CPS got involved. Marjorie shook her head violently. No, that is not... Maya turned to Marjorie. Mrs. Whitaker, I strongly suggest you stop speaking. My mother's mouth closed. Adrian looked almost relieved now that he was destroying someone else. That was the thing about cowards. They confuse betrayal with strategy. Celeste handed her the drink, he said. Not me. She put it in the cup. Celeste's face twisted. Because you gave it to me? Adrian laughed once, sharp and vicious. I told you to create concern. I did not tell you to be stupid enough to get caught on camera. The cruelty of that sentence hit Celeste harder than any slap could have. Her whole life, she had been protected from consequences by people who softened her mistakes, renamed her selfishness, excused her cruelty, and called her special. Adrian did not call her special. He called her stupid. And for Celeste, that was unforgivable. Her eyes went flat. You want to talk about stupid? She said. Victor closed his eyes like a man watching a train accelerate toward a cliff. Celeste turned to Maya. He brought the drug. Maya said nothing. He had it before the party. He said it was from one of his contacts. He said it would not show up like normal medication. He said if Lily became disoriented at Evelyn's house, hospital staff would have to report it. Then Mom and Dad would tell police Evelyn was unstable. Marjorie whispered, Celeste. Celeste ignored her. He told me once there was an investigation, Evelyn would panic. He said she would settle because single mothers always break when custody is threatened. Adrian lunged half a step despite the cuffs. You lying? The second agent tightened his grip. Stay where you are. Celeste laughed, but there were tears on her face now. You used me. You wanted the money. You needed it. So did you. Their voices rose together, years of image and debt and fear tearing through the expensive silence of the room. Celeste pointed at him. You told me Morgan Bridge was fine. It would have been fine if you had stopped spending. My spending, she screamed. You were paying for an apartment across town. You bought her jewelry. You paid for her child. Adrian's face hardened. Do not bring my son into this. Celeste froze. The word son landed like a second arrest. Even Marjorie looked stunned. So it is true, Celeste whispered. Adrian looked away. That was enough. Celeste's mouth trembled. Then her anger returned with a force that made the room seem smaller. You destroyed my life. Adrian turned back toward her. No. You destroyed your own life when you thought you could steal from a child and call it family. For once, Adrian accidentally told the truth. Celeste went still. Then she turned slowly toward him, and in that moment, I saw the golden child disappear. What remained was someone frightened, cornered, and willing to burn down everything if it meant she did not burn alone. You want the truth? She said to Maya. Look at the board signatures. Morgan Bridge Strategic Holdings, the March filings. The signatures are forged. Adrian's eyes widened. Celeste. And the invoices from Northline? She continued. Fake consulting, fake compliance reviews, fake vendor payments. He used them to move money. Victor whispered, Stop talking. But Celeste had spent her whole life believing consequences were things that happened to other people. Now that they had reached her, she reacted the only way she knew how. She pointed somewhere else. He paid bribes, she said. I do not know all the names, but I saw the wire memos. He said they were facilitation payments. He said everyone in private capital does it. Maya's eyes stayed on her. Where did you see those records? Celeste swallowed. At home, his office, some in the safe. Adrian's breathing changed. Maya nodded to the second agent, who made a note. And the sedative? Celeste's face crumpled. For a second, she looked like the sister I used to wish I had. Not innocent, never innocent, but human. He said it would not hurt her, she whispered. My hands curled under the table. Her, not Lily, still not Lily. Even confessing, Celeste could not say my daughter's name. He said it was a small amount, enough to make her sleepy and confused, enough for the hospital to ask questions, enough for Mom to say Evelyn had been acting erratic. I looked at my mother. She was crying now, silently, mascara gathering under her eyes, but her tears did not move me. They were not for Lily. They were not even for me. They were for the image dying in front of her. Maya turned toward Celeste. Mrs. Morgan, you are also under investigation for conspiracy, child endangerment, obstruction, and financial crimes connected to this scheme. Celeste's face went blank. What? Adrian laughed bitterly. There it is. Celeste looked at Maya like she had misunderstood the language. But I'm telling you the truth. Maya's voice remained even. After participating, No, Celeste shook her head. No, Adrian manipulated me. That may be relevant later, Maya said. It does not erase your actions. For the first time in her life, Celeste looked at my mother and did not find rescue waiting. Mom, she whispered. Marjorie stood so quickly her chair rocked backward. No, no, this is not necessary. Celeste is a victim here. I almost closed my eyes. Of course. Even now, even after the words, make Lily sleepy, even after the guardianship plan, even after the trust fund, even after hearing Celeste admit enough to destroy herself, my mother reached for the same old script. Celeste is the victim. Maya looked at her. Mrs. Whitaker, sit down. Marjorie did not. She was scared. She was manipulated by that man. Evelyn has always made things difficult. This family has been under enormous stress because of her choices. Nathan's voice cut through the room. Careful. One word. That was all. But Marjorie heard the warning underneath it. Everything you say now can bury you too. Douglas finally stood. For once, his face was not blank. It was broken. Marjorie, he said quietly. Stop. She turned on him. Do not tell me to stop. Our daughter is in trouble. I could not help it. I spoke. Your granddaughter was in danger. Marjorie looked at me. For 1 second, her face flickered. Something like shame passed across it. Then it vanished. You do not understand what it is like to watch your child be taken away in handcuffs. I stared at her. No, I said, but I know what it is like to watch my child almost be taken from me while her grandmother helped. Douglas lowered his head. Marjorie's lips parted, but no words came. Maya turned to Celeste. Mrs. Morgan, stand up. Celeste looked confused, then terrified. No. The second agent moved toward her. No, wait. I cooperated. I told you things. Maya's voice was not cruel. That somehow made it worse. You can continue cooperating through counsel. Celeste looked at Victor, then at the younger attorney, then at Adrian, then at my parents. No one moved, not because they did not care, because nobody could save her without stepping into the fire themselves. The agent took Celeste's wrists. Marjorie made a sound I had never heard before. Low, animal, ripped from somewhere beneath all her manners. My baby, she sobbed. Celeste started crying then. Real tears, messy ones. Mom, do something. Marjorie moved forward, but Douglas grabbed her arm. Do not, he said. She tried to pull away. Douglas! His grip tightened. Maybe for the first time in his life, my father stopped enabling one disaster before it became another. Too late, but still. The cuffs closed around Celeste's wrists. The sound was softer than Adrian's, but it hit harder, because that sound ended a dynasty, not a wealthy one, not a powerful one, a family system. The golden child had finally reached a consequence my mother could not scold, purchase, charm, or rewrite. Celeste looked at me. Her face was wet. Her eyes were wild. You did this, she said. I shook my head. No, you did. She flinched like the words were physical. Then Maya and the second agent began moving Adrian and Celeste toward the door. Adrian went first. He straightened as much as a man in handcuffs could, trying to recover some scrap of dignity. But the expensive suit could not save him now. Neither could the CFO title, the white-collar house, the offshore accounts, the fake vendors, or the mistress in the apartment he had hidden across town. At the door, he looked back at me. The hatred was still there. But beneath it was something better, disbelief. He still could not understand how I had survived the story he wrote for me. Then he was gone. Celeste followed. She cried harder when she passed Marjorie. "Mom!" she sobbed. Marjorie reached toward her, but the agent guided Celeste through the doorway. My sister disappeared into the hall in white designer clothes and federal handcuffs. For a few seconds after the door closed, nobody spoke. The conference room looked exactly the same. Same skyline, same polished table, same expensive chairs. But the world inside it had collapsed. Victor gathered his papers with stiff, silent movements. His younger colleague looked like she wanted to be anywhere else on Earth. Nathan closed our folders slowly, one by one. My parents stood behind the empty chairs where Celeste and Adrian had been. Marjorie was shaking. Douglas looked 10 years older. I stood. Not because I had somewhere to go, because sitting near them suddenly felt impossible. My mother turned toward me. For the first time all day, there was no command in her face. No superiority, no polished disapproval, just panic. "Evelyn," she said. I did not answer. She took one step toward me. "Nathan," I said quietly. He moved beside me. Marjorie stopped. Her eyes filled again. Not soft tears, desperate ones. "Please," she whispered. "You have to help her." I looked at my mother, the woman who had called me unstable, the woman who had threatened my custody, the woman who had looked at Lily's danger and seen an opportunity for Celeste. "Help who?" I asked. She seemed startled by the question. "Celeste," she said, as if there could be no other answer. "She made a mistake." A mistake. Even now, even standing in the wreckage of a federal arrest, my mother reached for the smallest word she could find. I thought watching Celeste get arrested would be the end. Then my mother fell to her knees and asked me to save her. My mother went down on her knees in the middle of that conference room. Not gracefully, not dramatically, the way Celeste cried when she knew people were watching. Marjorie Whittaker simply folded. One moment she was standing there in her dark green dress and pearls, hands trembling at her sides, staring at the door where federal agents had taken Celeste away. The next, her knees hit the carpet. "Evelyn," she whispered, "please." For 1 second, I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no satisfaction. Just a strange, hollow silence. Then she reached toward me. "You have to help her." Nathan stepped slightly in front of me, but I touched his arm. "It's okay," I said. It was not okay. Nothing about that room was okay, but I needed to hear my mother finish the sentence she had been building my entire life. I looked down at her. "Help who?" She stared at me like I had asked something cruel. "Celeste, of course. Not Lily. Not the little girl who had almost been drugged. Not the child whose trust fund they had tried to reach through custody threats and legal manipulation. Celeste, my mother's favorite child, her golden child, her baby." "She made a mistake," Marjorie said, voice breaking. "She was scared. Adrian manipulated her. He ruined her life." I looked at my father. Douglas stood behind her with one hand pressed over his mouth. His eyes were wet, but he was silent. Still silent, even now. I turned back to my mother. "A mistake?" I asked. Marjorie nodded quickly, desperate now that she thought I might be listening. "Yes, a terrible mistake, but you know Celeste. She panics, she gets overwhelmed, she listens to the wrong people. You know how she is." I do know how she is. My voice sounded calm. Too calm. That was when Marjorie should have been afraid. "She handed my daughter a drugged drink." Marjorie squeezed her eyes shut. "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" She flinched. I stepped closer. Should I say she made a poor choice? Should I say she was confused? Should I say she was under pressure? Should I say everyone needs to calm down and think of the family? My mother's mouth trembled. Evelyn! No, you don't get to do that anymore. The words came out quietly, but they seemed to fill the room. Victor Harlan had stopped packing his papers. The younger attorney stared at the table. Nathan stood beside me, still as stone. And my parents finally had no version of me left to control. I looked at my mother and said every sentence I had swallowed since childhood. You chose Celeste when we were children. You chose her when she lied. You chose her when she failed. You chose her when she hurt people. You chose her when I needed you. You chose her when I was pregnant and scared. You chose her when Grandpa left Lily that trust. Marjorie shook her head. That's not fair. No. What isn't fair is that my 7-year-old daughter became a target because none of you could accept that something belonged to her. Douglas whispered, Evelyn, please. I turned on him. And you. He looked like I had struck him. You had so many chances to be a father, Shum, I said. One word, one honest word. That was all it would have taken sometimes. But you looked away. You always looked away. His face crumpled. I didn't know it would go this far. That has been your excuse my whole life. He lowered his eyes. I faced both of them. You stood in a hospital and helped them frame me. You threatened my custody. You called me unstable. You were willing to help Celeste take Lily from me so she and Adrian could get near that trust. Marjorie's voice sharpened through her tears. We were trying to protect Lily. No, I said. You were trying to protect Celeste from consequences. The truth sat between us, ugly and undeniable. Marjorie pressed one hand against her chest. She's my daughter. So am I. For the first time, my mother had no answer. I waited. Some wounded part of me still waited, even then, even after everything. I waited for her to say, I'm sorry. Not perfectly, not beautifully, just honestly. But Marjorie only looked toward the door again, toward Celeste, toward the child she still wanted to save. And that was the moment something inside me finally let go, not broke, released. I no longer needed my mother to understand. I no longer needed my father to admit he had failed me. I no longer needed Celeste to regret what she had done. I had spent my whole life waiting for people to become who I needed them to be. That day, I stopped waiting. Nathan opened his briefcase and removed a document. Mrs. Whitaker, Ma'am Whitaker, he said, voice formal now. You are both being served notice of an emergency protective order. Marjorie blinked. What? Nathan continued. The order prohibits contact with Evelyn Carter and Lily Carter. That includes direct contact, indirect contact, appearing at Ms. Carter's residence, her workplace, Lily's school, or attempting communication through third parties. My mother stood slowly. You can't be serious. I am, Nathan said. Her eyes flew to me. Evelyn, you cannot cut us off from our granddaughter. I laughed once, softly, sadly. You tried to take her from me. We are her family. No, I said. You are relatives. That distinction hit her harder than I expected. Family had always been my mother's favorite weapon. She used it to demand loyalty without accountability, silence without safety, forgiveness without repentance. But blood is not a contract that requires a child to stand still while adults aim knives at her future. Nathan placed copies of the order on the table. The order is supported by security footage, threatening messages, false statements, documented custody threats, and evidence tied to the ongoing investigation. Douglas finally stepped forward. Evelyn, please, let us fix this. I looked at him for a long time. You had 34 years. Then I walked out, not quickly, not shaking, not looking back. Outside the building, the city air felt loud and cold. Nathan walked beside me in silence until we reached the sidewalk. Then he said, "You did well." I almost laughed. Well, felt too small a word for surviving your own family, but I nodded. Thank you. Go home to Lily. So I did. Brooke was in my kitchen when I arrived, making boxed macaroni and cheese because Lily had declared it a comfort food emergency. Lily ran to me the second I walked through the door. Mommy! I dropped my bag and caught her. She wrapped her arms around my neck, warm and real and alive. That was the victory. Not the arrests, not the folders, not Adrian's face when the handcuffs clicked. This. My daughter safe in my arms. The legal aftermath took months. People who tell revenge stories often make it sound like everything ends when the villains are exposed. That is not true. Exposure is not the end. It is the beginning of paperwork. Adrian tried to cooperate. Of course he did. He gave names, accounts, routes, vendors, half-truths, strategic truths, and truths designed to damage everyone except himself. Federal prosecutors accepted what was useful and ignored the performance. His assets were frozen, then seized. The White Column House went from status symbol to evidence, then to financial wreckage. Morgan Bridge Capital collapsed under subpoenas, audits, and headlines. The man who had once stood in my backyard pretending to be untouchable became a cautionary article shared by people who used to beg him for investment advice. Tessa Lane disappeared from public view with her son. I did not blame her. That child had not asked to be born into Adrian's lies any more than Lily had asked to become the target of them. Celeste tried to play victim. She was good at that. At first, she cried in court. She claimed Adrian controlled everything. She said she had been emotionally manipulated, financially trapped, and terrified of losing her marriage. But prosecutors had her social media video. They had her hospital statements. They had the settlement language. They had messages. They had footage. They had her own words from the conference room. And eventually, even Celeste's tears stopped being currency. My parents drained their savings trying to save her. Marjorie sold jewelry. Douglas liquidated investments. They hired attorneys, consultants, reputation managers, anyone willing to accept money in exchange for pretending this was all a misunderstanding. It did not work. The country club quietly revoked their membership. The charity board removed Marjorie from a committee she had treated like a throne. Friends stopped inviting them places. Not because those friends suddenly became moral, but because scandal is contagious, and people with polished lives hate being too close to mess. Extended family members who had sent me hateful texts began sending apologies. Long ones, careful ones, the kind that never quite said, "I was wrong," but circled it like a nervous animal. "I'm so sorry for everything you went through. We didn't have all the facts." Celeste made it sound so convincing. "We hope you and Lily are healing." I did not respond. Not because I was bitter, because I understood repositioning when I saw it. Those people were not sorry they hurt me. They were sorry they had chosen the losing side too publicly. So I cut every final tie. I changed my phone number, locked down my social media, updated my home security, removed Marjorie and Douglas from every emergency contact list at Lily's school, pediatrician, dentist, and extracurricular programs. I revised my estate documents. I strengthened the protections around Lily's trust. I added layers of oversight so nobody could ever use my absence, illness, fear, or family pressure as a doorway to her money. And then, one quiet morning, after months of hearings, calls, statements, filings, and fear, I woke up and realized nobody in my family had access to me anymore. No messages, no surprise visits, no guilt calls, no holiday demands, no be the bigger person, no think of your sister, can dig, no your mother is heartbroken. Just silence. At first, silence felt strange. Then it felt like peace. 1 year later, I hosted Thanksgiving in the same house where everything had started. The patio had been repaired. The broken table was gone. The cameras were still there, though now they felt less like fear and more like a boundary with a power source. Brooke came early, carrying pies and bossing me around in my own kitchen. Nathan came too, not as my attorney that day, but as someone who had become part of the circle Lily called our real people. A few trusted friends from work arrived with side dishes. Neighbors who had stood by me came with wine, flowers, and stories that had nothing to do with court. The house was full, but not crowded. There is a difference. Crowded is when people take up space and leave you smaller. Full is when love has room to breathe. Lily sat at the dining table with markers spread everywhere, drawing place cards for each guest. Brooke's card had a superhero cape. Nathan's had a briefcase with a smiley face. Mine had a fox, yellow windows, and the words, Mommy's house, safe house. I kept that card. After dinner, when everyone's plates were full and the room glowed with candlelight, Brooke tapped her glass. Speech, she said. I shook my head. Absolutely not. Lily immediately joined in. Speech! Speech! Everyone laughed. So I stood. For a moment, I looked around the table. No Celeste making soft little insults. No Adrian calculating value. No Marjorie judging every corner. No Douglas looking away. No fear. No walking on eggshells. Just people who had shown up when telling the truth cost something. I lifted my glass. I used to think family meant the people you were born to, I said. I used to think loyalty meant staying quiet, forgiving quickly, and making yourself smaller so other people could stay comfortable. Brooke's eyes softened. Nathan looked down at his plate, pretending not to be emotional. I looked at Lily. But I was wrong. Family is not the people who share your blood and demand your silence. Family is the people who stand beside you when telling the truth costs something. The table went quiet. A good quiet. The kind that holds you. So, thank you, I said, for being my family. Lily raised her cup of sparkling cider. To safe houses, she said. Everyone toasted. To safe houses. That night, after the dishes were done and the guests had gone, I found Lily asleep on the couch under the same unicorn blanket she had used the night of the party. She was bigger now, taller, her curls longer, her world still soft in the places I had fought to protect. I sat beside her and let myself remember the pink glass, not to punish myself, not to relive the fear, but to honor the truth. I had seen it. I had acted. I had saved her. For years, my family told me I was difficult, too cold, too stubborn, too independent, too unwilling to let things go. They were right about one thing. I was unwilling to let things go. I did not let go of the cup. I did not let go of the footage. I did not let go of the money trail. I did not let go of my daughter. People ask if revenge felt good. The arrests did not feel good. The scandal did not feel good. Watching my sister cry in handcuffs did not heal my childhood. Seeing my mother finally lose control did not give me back all the years I spent wanting her love. That was not the revenge. The revenge was peace. The revenge was Lily laughing in her art room. The revenge was my phone not lighting up with my mother's name. The revenge was sleeping through the night. The revenge was building a life where nobody could enter with poison and call it family. Celeste, Adrian, Marjorie, and Douglas no longer have access to my home, my daughter, my money, my guilt, or my future. And for the first time in my life, I do not need an apology to be free. So let me ask you this. What is the hardest boundary you ever had to set to protect your peace? Tell me in the comments.